I'll take a minute while we're waiting for people to come on. Yeah, I'm an integrative oncologist. I've been doing this work for a few decades now, and um, basically the more I learn, the less I know, and you finally come. I mean, eventually you should come to the conclusion if you have this kind of job or career or calling actually that in the end we know nothing. Anyway, that make you feel confident? Hey, come see me. I know nothing. But anyway, remember Socrates. Socrates was when he asked the Oracle of Delphi, he said, "Who's the smartest person in the world? Because I need to go learn something." And he goes, and the Oracle said, "It's you, Socrates." And he goes, "That's not possible because I don't know anything." So Socrates spent his whole life trying to find somebody who knew something so he could find out and learn something. So he would go up to the greatest educators, the greatest politicians, the greatest people versed in literature or mathematics, and he would have a dialogue with them. It became known as the Socratic dialogue, and it was the way he asked the question sort of elicited the kind of answer that it's perfect. If you read it, it's like listening to the Brandenburg concertos. It's just like a perfect. Anyway, um, and so every time he questioned people, he'd get down to the end, where they had to acknowledge that it was all based on an assumption, right? And they get down to they have to say, "I don't know." So they put him to death. He was sentenced to death for that. It'd be like someone going around either to like the Parliament in the UK or Canada or Congress in the US or whatever, and having individual conversations with each of them and getting them to admit that they know nothing. I don't know. It kind of was a problem. So, but anyway, why was he the smartest person in the world? Because he knew nothing. Everybody else thought they knew something. Anyway, let's see, where are we? Oh, we got 50. I guess we have enough people. I don't know how many we're expecting, but we'll get started. We're
Yes,
ready to
Dr.
get started.
Lotus.
Yeah, okay, we'll get started then. All right. So um let me share my screen. Yay. Here we go. And wait, did I do that right? I guess so. Oh, no, that's not right. This is right. Yay. Wow, there we go. Okay. So yeah, Institute of Integrative Oncology is Singapore based. It exists to train doctors and to help clinics become truly integrative. So that's is more of a training and a knowledge center. The clinic that I have, it's in its 20th year now, is in Arizona, an oasis of healing. So that's where we are. Okay, very good. Now, uh, all right, now this is all very serious stuff, as you're going to see. Okay, the world of medicine, we have professional societies. If you're a cardiologist, you have the American College of Cardiology or the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology or whatever. And then when it comes to cancer, which it hurts me to say that word, and you'll see why in a minute. I hate to say it. Anyway, when it comes to that, that's called the American Society of Clinical Oncology, ASCO. And 55% of ASCO's members are not US based. So despite the name American Society of Clinical Oncology, it is the professional society for the field of oncology. And what do all professional societies do? They provide what they call guidelines to their practitioners. Now, these are called guidelines, but that's That's a very cute euphemism. It's really instructions. Okay, so the instructions are saying this is what you do. And if you practice this way, it's called the standard of care. If you don't practice within the standard of care, you're in trouble. You're in trouble with regulatory agencies like your medical license, and you're in trouble if a problem occurs and there's a lawsuit. You're not protected by these large organizations. Anyway, that's it. So, but you're going to see what it really is. It's really the standard of scare, and that the word cancer is a linguistic weapon, which actually prevents healing. How come this doesn't work? Here we go. Sorcery. So you're all familiar with sorcery, and let's take a look at it. It's actually the intentional use of words, symbols, and a ritualized setting to influence people's perception and to actually change them. So if you were to, look into the subject, you'd find that in sorcery, you need to have a special location, an environment. It might have candles here. They might have a pentagram upside down written on the floor. They might have whatever they have, whatever they need and then they have the appropriate garb that the sorcerer will wear. And then usually they're holding a book or not, and they pronounce these words. Okay. So it's a consecrated space, right? It's a setting to establish their authority and their mystique. Okay. And these objects that are around are tools that are imbued with meaning meant to influence the person's perceptual set so that they're now going to really be open for this. And as I said, there's a sacred attire. Okay. And then the incantation is spoke. It bypasses the conscious mind and it goes right into your heart like a screw worm, and you won't ever get it out. The ancient Aramaic language of Mesopotamia, abracadabra. Not sure how they pronounce it. Avra Kedabra. And it means, as I speak, so shall I create. And in Hebrew, the term wasn't, again, I don't speak Hebrew, but it's Habracadabra. But the true origin of abracadabra is not quite known. However, it's around that time. But it's associated with incantations. It's associated with the spoken word having a powerful effect on people. Okay, now there's another word, patient. All right, so it means to suffer and to endure. So do you realize when you call someone a patient, what are you telling? You're calling them a sufferer, and just bear with it. I mean, I prefer to call the people that come to work with us students, and we're all students. We're all students of life. Some of us are in the 8th grade, some are in the 7th grade. It doesn't matter, but we're all students of life. I mean, no one's got it together. No one. No, not even Elon or any of those guys that think they do. They don't have it together. Okay, so basically, modern medicine is ritualized sorcery. And I want to take you on a journey. Now, a lot of you have already had the spell cast upon you. I know that. So here we have the patient, right? The sufferer in the waiting room, which is a space of uncertainty. You understand that, right? It's a space of uncertainty because you're in the waiting room. You've had these tests done and all this stuff, and you're waiting there. Okay, okay. And then the nurse in uniform. The doctor will see you now. All right, okay. Whoa. The door opens into the inner sanctum. And there's a clean, sterile, quiet, white room. And on the back of the wall, there are these certificates. And the bookshelves are nearby with all the medical texts, proclaiming that this person has modern and ancient knowledge. And of course, the white coat is what? It's a symbol of purity, of authority. And then the sufferer, the patient, is seated not as an equal, but as the subject of a ritual. And then the incantation, the casting of the spell. You have cancer. The moment cancer is uttered, all auditory input is no longer received. You don't hear anything else. And I don't care what you think you had. If I had thought I had some situation like that going on, I would not go to the House of Horrors, because regardless of what I know, and regardless of what I've seen, if I heard any words like that they use, it's in my heart. Can't get it out. It's a verbal hex. It's a spell. And it's uttered with ceremonial precision. Let me tell you about this word. Unlike the word dog, table, car, it conveys no information. It doesn't tell you anything. It just gives you a new identity. You're no longer you. This is what we do every time we, practitioners, use these words. And it's there to, you have to understand, you're casting a spell. You're cursing the person. Why would I say such a thing? So the diagnosis is a ritual of medical spell casting. Tell you about the word diagnosis. Dia means to separate, distinguish. Gnosis, Gnostics, means to know. So how do you separate and know? You name it. If you give it a name, now you have, for example, a 2-year-old comes to my desk and looks, they don't see anything. It's all a blur. They don't see, phone, computer, because those don't have those names. They might vaguely see things, but that's basically it. All right. So it's not until they have a name. This name, by naming something, it exists. It's said that when the natives of South America were standing were up on a hill, and Cortez came to slaughter, commit. I think he did a pretty good job slaughtering. Cortez came anyways. The big ships. They didn't see the ships. They didn't have that name. They didn't have that concept. Names deliver concepts. And when this large ship with all these sails parked in the bay, and the little rowboats got off and they started rowing in, they saw that. So we have to understand that when you name something, it exists. When you name something, it exists. All right. So what is a diagnosis? Why do they need a biopsy? They need a biopsy so the pathologist, the learned pathologist, can look under the microscope and tell you the microscopic anatomy. Right? Like, for example, breasts are made of little sacs that produce milk, and they go through these ducts, and they come out the nipple, and then there's fat and blood vessels and lymphatic vessels and connective tissue, all that, and that's a breast. So the pathologist says, it's invasive ductal carcinoma. Oh my God, this guy's so smart. This lady's so smart. Okay, all they said was invasive ductal. So it's in the duct. Okay. Invasive, it went through the wall. Oh, okay. And it's a carcinoma. Oh yeah, because it's of ectodermal origin. Oh, okay. And then what, doc? Oh, that's it. But wait a minute. That didn't help. Could have called it a banana. Could have called it. It doesn't help. Why? Because it doesn't tell me the two things I want to know. What do I want to know? I want to know how did I get this and how do I get rid of it? And if it doesn't give you that information, it's useless. However, it's not useless. The name is arbitrary. It doesn't matter what you call it, but the consequences are certainly not arbitrary. Cancer, I'll tell you what cancer means. It means if you were born between June 21st and July 22nd. That's the only meaning. There is no other meaning. Look it up. Look etymology. There is no other meaning. Why don't we call it Sagittarius? Why don't we call it Leo, Gemini, Taurus? Yeah, Taurus. You know, fixed earth sign. Yeah, there we go. That'll hold it in the ground. Keep it there. All right. So zero information, but absolute 100% fear. That's what that word conveys. No information, fear. And then we have our corroborative toxic vocabulary. Prognosis, staging, remission, overall response, complete response, partial response, stable disease, progressive disease, objective response rate, progressive free survival, event free survival, major pathology. What does it mean? Nothing. It just means we got you. We got you. We got you in our snare, and we're gonna just torture. You know, you might think I'm being dramatic, but I've been watching what happens for 40 years to the people I work with, my students. And I cry. I cry. Many times I've literally cried. When they come in and I see what they've done to them. It should be, it's a capital crime. It's a capital crime. Sorry I don't know if you all know how bad, but if you've been to the House of Horrors, and I call it the House of Horrors, why? Because it's the only room, it's the only building in the world that has a secondary exit called the morgue. So even the word treatment means I'm going to fix that. There's something in there, I'm going to get rid of it. And the word, and doctors love to use the word armamentarium. It's a military term, but it's our toolbox is a military weapon to kill the enemy, cancer. So there's a battle, and this battle is fought. The battleground is your body, and the collateral damage is your body and state of mind, well-being. So the word cancer has become synonymous with death. That's the only information it gives you, and that's why it's 100% fear. There's been over 100 years of systematically dismantling hope based on what Warburg found in 1931, got the Nobel Prize, what he found exactly what it is. He found out that it is a failure in cellular respiration. So they replaced that. They didn't like that. They replaced it with the somatic and germline mutation theory. All right. And hey, it's in your genes. There ain't a thing you can do about it. Ain't a thing you can do about it. Well, hell, man, I might as well smoke and drink all night, right? I mean, well, what the hell? If it's in my genes, does it matter? Doesn't matter, right? So anyway, this collective trauma that's stored in our cultural psyche from that word, cancer, and I don't care what language. In Thailand, it's maling. The same, it has the same effect. It doesn't matter. Okay. Anyway, the media fueled helplessness and all that. Okay. So in the moment that you hear that word, if you're sitting behind the desk having the spell cast upon you, you are transformed. And your entire being and all the people you know now orbit around this one single word. And I hear people say, before I was diagnosed, since I was diagnosed, after I was diagnosed, is this diet, what does that mean, diagnosed? You were nailed. You had a spell, you were cursed. So just like abracadabra, the words "you have cancer" create a reality via sound waves. But unlike the Las Vegas magic of what Lance Burton and Siegfried and Roy, this magic is industrialized, credentialized, and state sanctioned. Today about sensation versus perception. Sensation are when the uh, uh, frequencies, whether they're sound, which is just air, moving through air, um, or electromagnetic frequencies, whatever they are. Okay, we've got specific receptors for those. We have photoreceptors, mechanoreceptors, like Pacinian corpuscles, etc. Sensory, different kinds of touch. We have chemoreceptors for our nose, smelling and tasting, thermal receptors for heat, cold, nocioreceptors, pain, and proprioception for am I upright or not. We actually have that, right? Inside our middle ears, our inner ears, we know if we're this way or that way. So this is information coming in. What does that mean? What is that information? What happens to it? That information gets there's an alchemical transmutation. And because what happens is those frequencies come in and they're converted into an electrical impulse. That electrical impulse, or those electrical impulses, travel through whatever nerves up to the brain, to a certain part of the brain, and then go through a trillion different synapses with everything. Okay. And in the end, you come out with what's called a perception. So the perception is not the sensory input. So we have sensation versus perception. Okay. So the perception is based on, and I just wanted to understand, perception is based upon a lot of things, right? It's based upon your particular history, your culture, blah, blah, all that sort of stuff. And it's also another very important variable is your current condition. So if you're hungry and you walk down the street, you're not going to see. Anyway, I don't know these lights. There, that's better. Isn't that better? No. Anyway, if you're hungry and you walk down the street, you will not notice that flower in a vase sitting on the windowsill or that cat in the corner. You're not going to see that. You're going to see restaurants. So motivation affects perception. All right. If you're a 14-year-old boy and you're walking down the street, you're not going to see restaurants. Anyway, and then words, what do? They label, categorize, they influence our attention. You have to understand, the words define the way you're looking. Words, language is the scaffolding of our mind, which is producing what's called a perceptual set. So we see what we're looking for, and we don't. Sure, in the last 5 years after the great hoax of 2020, you've all met people who you're saying, look these are 3 fingers, and they're going, this is 3 fingers. Okay. This is 3 fingers. Okay. Right? Yeah. And facts no longer have relevancy, right? Truth is irrelevant. All right. Anyway, this all goes through. They go through Broca's areas, Wernicke's area, the angular gyrus. There's all these different areas, right? I'm just saying all these synapses, and in the end, we come up with a perception. I just want you to understand the difference between sensation and perception. So whenever, and by the way, what are your memories? What is a what happened to everybody? Let me ask you, what was going on yesterday at 2:43 p.m.? Even if you remembered, what you're telling me you remember is a fragment of a perception that got stored in your brain. Is that what really happened? Who knows? Because this guy who was next to me says, no, she said it first. And I say, no, he said it first. And this guy says, they neither of them. So what really happened? We never know. All we know is our perception. And your memory, which is disturbing you and changing your life, is a fragment of a perception of blah, 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 blah. And you're experiencing it when? Then? No, you're experiencing it now. Because it's always now, by the way. I've been waiting for tomorrow for about 74 years now, and it hasn't come. It's still now. All right. So when they say this word to you, cancer, they steal your future and they give you an unknown current condition, which causes. So all of your dreams, all of your agendas, your to-do lists become irrelevant. Who you were is no longer who you were. Who you doesn't matter, and your future's gone. What do we know about fear from psychology literature? We know this. We know that people in this level of fear will actually do something that they know is dangerous if it's told to them by an authority figure. Because it gives them some sense of control. Otherwise, they're like, I picture someone who just you've seen those space movies where someone is out on a long cable and the cable breaks, falls away, and you're out there in space. That's what it's. The fear disconnects you from all of your reality. Your future's gone. Your past is irrelevant. Your dreams are irrelevant. All okay. And somebody comes along and says, "Do this." And okay, so it doesn't matter what it is, even if you know it's not in your best interest. It's true. It gives you some sense of reassurance of control. So you will do things like, "Hey, go get this shot to protect you from what? From that thing that you can't see. It's an invisible enemy, but it's there. Believe me, it's there. I believe you. I believe you. Okay, what do I need to do?" Anyway, physiologically, neurologically, this is called the amygdala hijacking. Okay, so the amygdala is a little structure inside of the brain, the midbrain, that is kind of manages a lot of emotions, especially fear. Okay, now what happens when that amygdala gets turned on, and we can see that with PET scans, we can see that the amygdala is lit up. It short circuits all the neural connections to the prefrontal cortex, and you can't think critically. You can't make decisions. Let me say that again. You cannot make decisions. You're no longer rational because the amygdala has taken over. All right. This is not a hypothesis. Okay. This is not hypothesis. It's proven on PET scans, right? PET scans where they, just like you do when you think you have that condition that I'm not going to use anymore. I guess I have to use it a couple more times in this presentation, but that's it. You're going to all realize that you need to stop telling people that they're going to die. When you use that word, you're saying you're going to die. Don't use that word. And don't let anybody around you say it. Anyway, you signed a informed consent to have this cut off or that cut off or to get poisoned or to get irradiated. You signed a consent. That was not informed consent. That was coerced consent. You cannot neurologically make an informed decision when you've been told you're going to die. You can't. Not psychologically, neurologically, not possible. We can see on the scan, we can see that there's no connect, that we've lost the connection to the prefrontal cortex is where we make decisions. All right. All right. So with the emotions are the primary motivators of humans. Okay. You know who learned that? You know who knew that a long time ago? By the way, very interesting. A guy named Ivy Lee. Ivy Lee was hired by a guy named J.D. Rockefeller, who is why we're talking today, to improve his image because everybody knew what a sick freak he was. So Ivy Lee did that, and he invented something called public relations. Actually, Bernays changed the name from propaganda, but anyway, Ivy Lee and Bernays. Anyway, propaganda. Anyway, so knowing that, okay, so we know that psychological stressors like living in poor areas, having low income, all this stuff produces conditions of fear. Okay. And it's Pavlovian. You all know Pavlov, where the they would feed the dog a piece of steak or something and ring a bell at the same time. And pretty soon they wouldn't, just by ringing the bell without the steak, the dog would salivate. That's called a conditioned response, Pavlovian response. And that's very different from an operant response, operant conditioning. Operant conditioning is different. That's what the behavior therapists use. In operant conditioning, they have the pigeon in the cage, and there's a lever over here that when it's pressed, the pellet comes out of food. They don't know that. They're just bouncing around, and they hit it once. Oh, they don't connect it yet. After a few times, they connect it. That's called operant conditioning versus classical conditioning. Anyway, the most fear, if you grow up whatever you're going to grow up with becomes your conditioned perceptual sets. And the problem with that, or the restrictions of that, is when you have a perceptual set, it doesn't matter now, whoever says that word, it doesn't matter what they mean by it, your response will be this, okay? All right. So as I said, at PET scan, they have the SUV. The SUV is standard uptake value of the glucose that they injected, the fluorodeoxyglucose, radio labeled glucose. They inject, and then they do a scan, and they look for the rate at which you're picking up glucose, which indicates activity level, right? And that's what they do when they're looking at for tumors. And the activity level, or the rate at which it picks up glucose, determines its activity, right? And if it's more active, it's more active. So the amygdala lights up, and the degree, the SUV, in other words, the value of that glucose uptake predicts atherosclerosis, cardiovascular conditions, inflammatory markers. It even predicts visceral adiposity. There's central adiposity, which is around your gut, but then there's visceral adiposity, which is the nasty one. That's the one that causes the production of IL-6, which goes to the liver and produces C-reactive protein, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. It also was predictive of insulin resistance. Fear. You hear what I'm talking about? Fear. Okay. Then the nervous system is activated, and you get what? What happens with that? You get adrenaline, renin secretion, angiotensin, NF-kappa beta, all the tumor necrosis factor, all these things that make tumors grow is what happens when you cause someone to be afraid. And especially when you say to them, you're going to die. Hey, how about this? It's not curable, but we can. That you can't hear anything after that. How do you sit there with your white coat and vomit death onto these people? So we have a fear defense system, hardwired, promotes survival, right? The amygdala, the hypothalamus, the periaqueductal gray, the sympathetic and vagal nuclei, all that stuff, right? Okay, so anyway, so what happens is the hypothalamus will process, it gets processed by the amygdala without conscious awareness. All this is happening without conscious awareness of when you're getting your sensory input. Then the conscious perception will be you feeling tense, or you're sweating, or tachycardia, but you don't have that connection. Okay, this is just it's kind of like the fear defense, cold hands, you get all these hyperventilating. Okay. All right. And then you all know we have the fight or flight with the sympathetic nervous system, and then we have the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic is for violent movement or running or whatever, right? The sympathetic, right? And it shunts blood to the muscles and shuts off the prefrontal cortex, because you cannot be saying, somebody's standing there with a gun. You can't be saying, should I go left or should I go right? You're dead. So no thinking. You got to be like a quarterback in the middle of a game. Right? You think quarterbacks are deciding what to do? It's kind of like a person on a surfboard. You don't think about it. If you think, you're dead. You're not dead. You'll crash. You got to so you shut off the prefrontal. So that's what happens with the sympathetic nervous system. Also, you don't need your immune system at that moment. So let's slow it. So all the things you don't need are turned on, right? And that means all the blood flow to the organs, which you need for for life, for vitality, is slowed down and everything's in your muscles. All right. And the parasympathetic, as you know, is the opposite. So, and then there's the one big, this happens to all mammals, so it's not just us. It's when they freeze. When there's an inescapable threat, even if it's not, if you perceive it as being inescapable, it's called. It actually has. It actually helps. It's actually a functional response. I'm gonna be mad. I got to tell you something about this universe that God made. It's incredible. Anyway, it's got a functional response. It's a functional behavior. By freezing, the predator doesn't get their predation stimulation. So with an animal that freezes, lion, because predators are looking for motion. So it actually has, and also it also gives the person the time to say, or the cat, rabbit, whatever, to say, okay, you got to get out of here. I think I'll go that way. All right. So it's got a lot of functional, right? You gotta understand that. Thank God. Anyway, so the so for us, what happens to us? Like the rabbit will freeze, right? We get numb. We actually hallucinate. We get the feeling of hopelessness. Do you realize if you take away someone's hope, what have you done? What have you done? I don't know. You've done your duty. Yeah. To who? Satan? So the sympathetic overdrive and the adrenal response, okay? Here's how it happens, right? It goes from the hypothalamus through the locus coeruleus. Anyway, what happens is it finally works on the the receptors, the adrenergic receptors, and we know that because we can give propranolol, which blocks the beta receptors, and they don't get that response, the fear. So, for example, propranolol is used by people that have stage fright, actors or musicians, and they have, when they go on stage, they're like, if they take this before and it blocks that, they're okay. They don't have the physiological correlate of fear. And if you don't have the physiological correlate of fear, you might think you're not afraid. It's kind of cool. So it works both ways. That's when we talk about the mind-body connection. You cannot separate the mind from the body and the spirit. So humans are a mind-body-spirit complex. And it's not like one ends here and another one begins there. Okay, it's all one big complex. All right. So what happens is you give propranolol, it blocks the beta adrenergic response of fear and anxiety. Phobias, panic disorders, okay, it'll work in that, okay? All right, so what these hormones do, these adrenal hormones of cortisol, adrenaline, and norepinephrine, noradrenaline, and adrenaline, they do all the things we just talked about, by shunting blood away. Your blood sugar goes up. There's all sorts of nasty things happen metabolically, okay? Because your body is now in a survival mode, not a repair mode. Understand what that just meant. Your body is in a survival mode, not a repair mode. So every time you go back to the House of Horrors where they have a morgue and they cut people up and they poison the hell out of them, every time you go back there, just being there, you can't heal. Your body's in survival. Okay, so that's a hack stuff. So we talked about the amygdala hijacking, and the fear, and the overrides brain functions. So a diagnosis, a curse, a hex, that is terminal. If I say you've got a little bone cyst, you're fine. But if I say you have cancer, I just said you're dead. It's got a terminal. It's terminal. Okay. No more executive function. You have to understand that. So it's not just psychological, it's neurological. Please understand that. It's sympathetic overdrive and adrenal surge. Okay, you lose your future. Your future is irrelevant. Okay, and your identity's gone. You weren't just told you're sick, you were just told you're going to die. Don't use the word unless you hate the person. Even then, be nice. So here's what happens. Healing requires parasympathetic dominance. That's the other side of that autonomic system, which is resting, digesting, repairing, and and a blood flow to your kidneys, blood flow to your liver, is increased, and your digestion is improved, and your breathing, and then by the way, the heart rate slows down. Why does the heart rate slow down? Because our resting heart rate is kind of like when a baby's born. It's like 120. That's our resting heart rate. But we have a parasympathetic overdrive that keeps it down to 70, 60. So when you go to sympathetic and you lose your parasympathetic, okay. But healing requires, all the rest and the, no fear, hope. You have the vision. You just, you're just, that's what we need. Only then are we biochemically capable of healing. Now, the curse directly shuts all that up. And the collapse is psychological, existential, and physical. This is sorcery, folks. There's not another name. I'm not using hyperbole. This is sorcery. Stay sanctioned. So the diagnosis, why do they need to do a biopsy? To get the histological description, to tell you what the microscopic anatomy is. Who gives up? They do. Because now there's a DRG code, or you get some code. There it is. You get your code, just like on you're buying something from something, and then you got the code, right? They can be scanned. The reason they want these words, and if you want to have a doctor freak out, don't let them do a biopsy. No, oh my God, because they can't put a name on it, and if they can't put a name on it, and that's good for you too. You don't need a name on anything. You just know, hey, I'm out of balance. I better get balanced. That's it. All right. Now, the name. Why do they want the name? Because the name is the proper nomenclature that fits into the sales algorithm. Wait, how did we do that? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I got to go back. Where was I? Where was it? Here, here, here. Was I here? No, I was past that. That. Yeah, let's go with that. I think that's it. I don't know. Doesn't matter. It's all the same thing. Okay. We talked about the well, no, we talked about that. Okay. Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah. Okay, we're in the sales code. Now it's important because once they have the proper nomenclature and they can stick you into the sales algorithm, come down by the American Society of Clinical Oncology or the American College of Cardiology or blah, blah, blah. They give you the sales algorithm. The sales algorithm. Which products and services do you offer next? Mm-hmm. All right. All right. Why and what else does that diagnostic code do? It works because now they can stick it into their billing system. They can use it to bill. If I'm ordering a blood test, I've got to put that code in there because that code allows them to bill properly. This is a sales organization. Let me ask you about any business in the world. Do you know of any business in the world that does anything and exerts any effort to minimize the number of clients they have? You got to remember something. JD, by the way, this book, writing a book. You should all read it. I'm hopefully going to be done in a month. It's called what's the name? God, I'm so in the middle of the book. I forgot the name. It's oh, I forget. Coming Dark Ages. Yeah. Anyway, the Dark Ages are coming. Unless, by the way, this is not a hopeless book. Unless the elephant sings. The elephant sings. We're free, guys. So you got to read this and find out what I mean. You'll understand. All right. Anyway, but anyway, you have to understand what Rockefeller did. JD Senior. Okay, what he did was he did something that's called vertical and horizontal integration. Right. He bought up all of competition, and then he went and then he bought all the levels, right? So from production, manufacturing, production, transportation to sales, right? We had Standard Oil, gas station. Anything you did with oil or gas had to go through him. Like what? Carnegie did the same thing with steel. These guys were like, anyway, so he takes that mindset and takes over education in 1903, 1910, medical education. I mean, this is not like, this guy's weird. Yeah, I may be weird, but this is true. So now that we have that sales code, that diagnosis, we can stick it into cell diagram, and we know exactly what products and services to sell you now. So this is not personal care. This is corporate medicine. So we need to reclaim our language. It's healthcare, not disease elimination via military operations. It's the restoration of balance. By the way, there's no such thing as a disease. That's a morph from the germ theory, which says they're out there and they're going to get us. Hypertension's over there. I saw diabetes. There's arthritis. Right? Watch out. They're going to get me. And they get you. I got to get rid of them. You understand? There's no them. There's no them. The body is always engaging what's called physiological adaptive responsive, corrective homeostatic responses, right? I'm eating too much bread, pasta, potato, and rice. I got a lot of glucose in my system. My body reflexively becomes insulin resistant to protect me because I'm too stupid to know that the glucose will kill me. My body's not stupid, made by God. So it becomes, I go to the white coat sorcerer and they say, you have diabetes. We need to get rid of it. All right. Why don't I just stop eating the pasta, bread, potato, right? And my body won't need to go through that adaptation. Take this drug. Okay, anyway. All right, so we must reclaim it. Yeah, restoration. Now, let's talk about words with meaning. I'm going to tell you what these all really mean, okay? All cancers, I mean, that's the last time I have to use it. All cancers are defined by their metabolism. This is what Warburg, okay? It's called aerobic glycolysis, or also called fermentation, all right? That's what it has to happen. That means in the presence of oxygen, it's still going to ferment, or glycolysis. Normal, non-cell like that, if you shut down the oxygen, it ferments to make energy. You put the oxygen back on, it stops fermenting. That's what a healthy cell will do. But one of these doesn't. It's called aerobic glycolysis. Okay. So this metabolic condition, also called the Warburg effect, is what defines it. Whether it's from your breast, ovary, elbow, prostate, toenail, doesn't matter where it's from. It must have that, because when it is fermenting, and it needs to do this on a long-term basis, it had to change some of its structure, its epigenetics. It had to change its epigenetics to be able to survive in fermentation, because fermentation is very inefficient in terms of energy production. So you need a lot more, you need like 19 times more glucose. So in order to do that, it changes. And when function changes, shape changes, anatomy, physiology, form, function. So the shape of the cell changes. It's got bigger these and smaller these, and it's irregular. And so when the brilliant pathologist looks under the microscope, he sees those morphological changes and says, aha, this is cancer. Because why? Because it has gone through some changes and it looks different. And if the cell is not chronically fermenting, you cannot diagnose it. So there is no universal gene mutation that defines all cancers. There's only one cancer. There's only one type. What type do you have? You have a very unusual type. There's one type. It's called aerobic glycolysis. Period. Period. Exclamation point. Location's different. Ah, there's the difference. Because breasts have different activity than liver, than kidneys, prostates. And because of the differing activities of the particular organ or gland, there's the differences. And what else is the difference? The drainage patterns. Whether the lymphatics and blood vessels, where do they go? That's it. And so it's not types, it's location. Okay. So what's the cause of this? Mitochondrial dysfunction. This is what Warburg proved a long time ago. When 60% of the mitochondria are gone, because you live in the 21st century, what caused it? Well, what didn't cause it? Well, what didn't cause it is the time you took a walk in the park. What didn't cause it is when you went to bed early that night. What didn't cause it? Everything else caused it. So basically what happens is the cell, 60% of the mitochondria are lost. It can no longer rely on that. And it has to go to the default mode of energy production called glycolysis or fermentation, which is 19 times less efficient at energy production. So you need 19 times more glucose. So you upregulate, it's called epigenetic change, upregulate this, downregulate. You make all these changes. Now the cell can survive on that, and it's able to survive. It's an adaptive, homeostatic, epigenetic response. And we all have them all over the place in our body. In picograms, nanograms, micrograms, milligrams. But if you have 1 gram or more, then you have, clinically, okay, one more time, cancer. Otherwise, you don't. So we all have those going around because it's a necessary response to certain things. You understand that, okay? Introducing, folks, I want you to take that word and save it for people born between June 21st and July 22nd. Please save it for that. And chronically fermenting cells, that's what they are. They've learned to survive on fermentation. They've downregulated P53. They've downregulated P21. They've turned on the MAP kinase. All of these things that we say are oncogenes, they're not. If you look up the biochemistry, and you will see that each one of these pathways, each one of these things that's affected, results in an increased ability to survive on fermentation, and takes you away from the requirement of having to go through what they call oxidative phosphorylation in the mitochondria. It's a metabolic. That's what it. They're not. And if they didn't cause it, they are how it is able to survive. By the way, these are not mutations. There are mutations do occur because of the instability and all that stuff. Yeah, I'm not saying that they don't occur, but they're not the cause. So, for example, most CFCs. Okay, you got a guy now. It's not there. It's no longer. We're not using the word Sagittarius, Scorpio, especially not Scorpio, and Aquarius or any of those words anymore. We're using CFCs. That's what they are. Okay, now because that word is it's full of fear. Whereas CFCs say, okay, chronically fermenting cells. Okay, so they're fermenting. Okay, how did it get that way? Oh, okay, so what do I need to do? So in other words, it gives you information and it gives you the ability to now develop a plan to resolve it. Oh, okay. So I've just given you information and a way out and a way to resolve it. So you have clarity. There's no fear if I say you got CFCs. Oh my, you don't. There's no fear. So now you can think. Now you can make informed consent. And someone says, "Hey, we want to poison you," and you go, "No, go poison yourself, huh?" So it gives you the cause and the path to resolution instead of got it, got it. I'm not dramatic because I'm telling you something. You should see what I've seen. I had this. I mean, yeah. This one woman. I mean, they took her jaw off. They took her tongue out. They irradiated her. She had no salivate. She couldn't salivate. She had a tube in her stomach. And she did this because she wanted to be alive to raise her daughter. And her little daughter was there looking at her mama like that, who was like, looked like a monster. At that same time, we happened to have 3 other people in our clinic who had head and neck problems, and they didn't get the surgeries. And I can't tell you. It, it, it makes me cry to think about it now. So I can't, just telling you. I'm not dramatic. They are dramatic. They're not dramatic. They're melodramatic. Introducing CFCs, folks. Health is the optimal function of the organism. It's not the absence of disease, because there is no disease. That's like saying that's like saying light is the absence of darkness. Okay. Anyway, when all biological and psychological needs are satisfied, we have something called optimal functioning. Okay. How do we do that? We get rid of all possible toxins, and then we give you exactly the substances you need for the body to renew and produce energy, and no substances that you don't need. Kind of simple. I mean, it's complicated, really, but conceptually simple. And guess what? It makes sense. Yeah. That's the thing about the truth, but the truth requires no references other than a moment's reflection. And then you say, oh, here, I can learn to count to 10. Then you say, hey, by the way, look, 1 and 1 is 2. You go, yeah. You don't say, well, I don't know. Okay, so remember, this is not a military operation. It's about restoring balance. It's a completely different journey. Jump off the death train, folks. Let's get on to and we're all on it. By the way, your baby, your grandma, your wife, your husband, we're all your friends. We're all on the journey to health. That's what we all want to have. So you're not alone anymore. Get on the journey to health. All right. Forget the death train. All right. So psychoneuroimmunology. Okay. It's also known as psychoendomyology or psychoneuroendocrinoimmunology. They love these words. This is what they live for. And if the more of these words, like for example, instead of calling it low-dose chemotherapy now, we're calling it metronomic chemotherapy. Why? Because as soon as the patients know what we're talking about, it's not good. So we got to change words. All right. So we hide behind these words. Words for language. Okay. All right. Anyway, it looks at the relationship between your psychology, your immunity, your endocrine system, your nervous system, etc. It's an interdisciplinary. It came about around 1970s. There was a couple studies in the 70s which brought this discipline, and it's basically interdisciplinary: psychology, neuroscience, immunology, physiology, genetics, pharmacology, molecular biology, psychiatry, behavioral medicine, infectious. I don't use the word disease either. Infectious conditions, endocrinology, and rheumatology. So I don't know. It's kind of everything, right? Yeah. That's what psychoneuroimmunology is. Okay. So now acute stress, right? Which we talked about. The fear activates the hypothalamus. Then you get the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, right? You get cortisol, adrenaline. What do these do? What do these hormones do? What does that response do? It suppresses natural killer cell activity. It prevents T cell proliferation, and it blocks cytokine signaling, all of which are necessary to get rid of CFCs. Do you hear that? Do you hear that? Please hear that. Okay. Is he just making that up? No, there's studies. Here's one. This study in 1995 showed that breast CFC patients with higher stress had reduced NK cell activity. We know that. And then here, this study in 2006 showed that chronic stress promotes major progression by impairing cellular immunity, increasing angiogenesis and metastasis. And that's, I mean, those are just two. There's tons of studies. Okay. Now, psychosocial factors and CFC outcomes. CFC, got that, guys? Chronically fermenting cells. That's what's going on. That's what's going on. That's just the reality of what's going on. There are no I promise you, if we did any surgery or any imaging with the best MRIs, we're not going to find any astrological signs inside of your body. We might find some chronically fermenting cells, but we won't find astrologicals. Okay, so the emotional states of hopelessness, fear, and isolate. You feel isolated because you feel like I'm really good. Lower survival rates, period. And these studies also show that people that have a fear of recurrence, and why wouldn't you? Because everybody gets recurrences. Why do they get recurrences? Because they never took care of it in the first place. You weren't in remission. You just got, so you couldn't see it. You gave it a haircut. It didn't come back. It never left because it wasn't treated. You didn't restore the harmony that the body needs. You're on the wrong journey. You can't win. It's not a military operation. Okay. So fear of recurrence results in consistent, persistent immune dysregulation. Chronic stress, much worse. Okay. You've got inflammation. Now, inflammation is the underlying adaptive physiology that supports the progression of and existence of tumors and the growth. I say adaptive physiology because there's no such thing as pathology. Pathology means something went wrong. Nothing went wrong, ever. The body always does what's necessary. It can't do anything else. All right. It's adaptive physiology. Get rid of the word pathology. Get rid of the word staging. By the way, why do they want to stage you? What does that mean? Because when they stage you and they say you are a stage 3B, blah, 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 they have a prognosis associated with that based on their studies. So now they know when you're going to die. You're going to die in 9 months. You're going to die in a year and a half. You're going to die. They know that. So every time you go to the hospital and to the house of horrors and you go in there and everybody knows your curse, your precise curse is your stage. They've just told you when you're going to die. Now, 93% of human communication is nonverbal. That's true. Look it up. Meaning that they don't have to say a word. That you're in that environment, everybody knows you're going to be dead. You won't be here in 2 years. You're hearing that. Just like you're standing in a room, you're talking to someone, there's somebody behind you 20 feet who's staring at you. You turn around. Why? Same reason. Okay. So here, this study here demonstrated that chronic stress increases the expression of pro-tumorigenic genes and suppresses anti-tumor immune genes. Taming the mind. Fear suppresses the immune system. Fear exists in the mind. Okay. That means it's a thought. Let me tell you about thinking. It's not voluntary. You don't decide to think. Just like you don't beat your heart. You don't breathe your lungs. They're all happening. You don't digest your food. We use transitive verbs incorrectly. So you're not breathing your heart. You're not digesting your food. It's your food is being digested. Your heart is beating and thinking is happening. If you had to decide on what you thought, you'd be spending all day tomorrow deciding what you're going to think tomorrow. Today, what you're going to think tomorrow. 90% of human thought anyway is subconscious, meaning we're not really sure about what we don't know all the stuff we're telling ourselves. But we do know from studies that 80% of human thoughts are negative. Why? Because you grew up with 3 instructions before you can speak, and they are no, stop, don't, no, stop, don't, no, stop, don't. We grow up with, okay. Negative thinking, 80%. So even if you're thinking of a beautiful sunset and 80% underneath is, that's why, visualization is nice, but you got to realize So as long as you are thinking, you have your foot on the brakes of the immune system, period. And that's when you haven't even been told, cursed. So how do we deal with the mind-body? Remember, the mind doesn't end somewhere and the body begins. So how do we do that to improve the immune markers? Okay, we have meditation, we have cognitive behavioral therapies, and social support. That was a study, but basically we also have, and I'll go through it in a minute. There are many ways of doing that. Okay, we know that all this stuff lowers the cortisol levels. It improves T cell function, and it normalizes cytokine profiles. Cytokines are chemicals produced by immune cells that direct the activity of the immune system. It gets normalized. Evidence, here's a study. It showed that mindfulness-based stress reduction improved immune recovery in breast CFC patients. I gotta go back. I gotta fix that. I don't like that word. It hurts now. Anyway, okay. And here's another study I left the word. I got to go back to this slide. Remind me. Okay. They found that group therapy, again, which was again is helping with that social isolation. It helped improve survival. Okay, that's why in our rooms, where we're getting your IV vitamin C, et cetera, like that, they're a big room with circle. We're not knowing a little room or private. No, because you're gonna think, my God, I'm different. I got a red. Right. We're all in this together. Now, to talk about that cognitive behavior therapy, I just want to tell you about Albert Ellis. In the 50s, he was a psychologist. And he came up with an idea with rational emotive behavior therapy. And what he said was that thoughts evoke emotions, emotions evoke thoughts. Goes back and forth. So he says it's what he helps the person do is find out what they're telling themselves and show them that it's irrational, right? Right. So you're going to be late for work, right? So you're thinking, oh, I'm going to be late for work. Oh, that's true. Okay. You're on your way and you're going to be late for it. Therefore, I'm a bad employee. Therefore, I'm probably going to lose my job. Blah, blah. So I'm going to maybe I just won't go in today. Do you realize that all that does? You're just late for work. That's the truth. All that other stuff is self-talk that destroys you. And this is the word of the imperative thinking. I must and should. Must and should don't exist. All exists is what is, okay? But they have you do things irrational. So a lot of our emotions that have us all stirred up is because not all of it is what we're telling ourselves. So rational emotive therapy was he unravels, what are you telling yourself? And then has you change your language. I love that. However, since all thoughts are still going to have 80% negativity, let's leave the thought world, transcend it. Because you're saying, the story you're telling yourself is not a good story. Let me give you another story. It's still a story. Transcend it. And that's what meditation is. Okay. So now the brain regions that are affected, just to show you that this is not just hocus pocus or spirituality. What do they call it? I forget the names. Anyway, the anterior cingulate cortex. I keep admitting people. The anterior cingulate cortex, the striatum, and then is for the area for mindfulness training, right? Then the emotional regulation is linked to the multiple prefrontal regions, the limbic system, the striatum. Self-awareness is linked to the insula, the medial prefrontal cortex, the posterior genital cortex, and the precuneus. These are real things, and they see that. And so when people who are practiced in mindfulness things, which is Tai Chi, Qigong, even Sufi dance. The Sufi dancing is not as much research with Sufi, but anyway. But these kinds of things, these parts of the brain get exercised; they get stronger. Okay, and guess what? It's independent of what type of discipline you're doing, whether it's Tai Chi, Qigong, or meditation, or yoga, asanas. And what they found is, remember, the amygdala, they found that by doing this, when they do the studies, they see that the amygdala activity goes down. the amygdala goes down. Remember we talked about amygdala hijacking of the prefrontal cortex? This restores that. This actually restores it. So instead of ugly, nasty words that cause that, let's get out of this. All right, guys. Yeah. The epigenetics, everybody's talking about epigenetics, genetics. Okay. This technique enhances the expression of genes associated with energy metabolism, mitochondrial function, insulin secretion, and telomere maintenance, and reduces the expression of genes linked to inflammatory responses. Do you realize that those epigenetic changes are exactly turning off what the cell had to do to become a chronically fermenting cell? All the changes it had to make are being reversed. This is, you talk about therapy, what? So in this study, they actually measured, they had people that were long-term practitioners, and they had people who were trained for like 8 weeks, I think. And then they had people who were not trained. And they saw that both the short term and the long term, they had significant temporal gene expression changes. Epigenetics, we're talking about epigen, we're talking about real science, folks, real science here. Significant temporal gene expression compared with the novices, both the short and long term. That means 8 weeks and years. However, of course, the long term had a much greater difference. But the point is, those areas of the brain that are responsible for chilling out, for making your body be able to go into a healing mode, are exercise. You go to the gym and exercise, right? So that you can look good in the mirror. Do this so you can be around to look in the mirror. Okay. Any proof? Yeah, read this. Go read this study. Relaxation response induces temporal transcription chains in energy metabolism, insulin secretion, and inflammation. Okay, this is all a mitochondrial resiliency. Why is that important? Because the mitochondria are why the cells have to ferment. You lose 60% of the mitochondria, you've got to ferment. Period. All right? Okay, I just wanted to show you this here. So in Qigong and Tai Chi, it's how to preserve and cultivate Qi. Now, Qi is an energy. It's also in Hinduism they call it prana. Yeah, and the Vedic sciences they call it prana. It's the same thing, and it is something that we don't have a name for in the West. But it's what you're breathing, eating. It's it's going through you. It's the vitality. It's the essence of life. Life is what it is. And we've got it going on, man. All right. You want to keep it flowing, and it's really expressed in the breath. So all of these things, whether it's asana, yogas, meditation, Tai Chi, Qigong, Qigong. It's hard the way the Chinese pronounce it. They all focus around the breath because the breath is God. It's who we are. When you start breathing, okay, born at 9:23 a.m. When you go, because they slapped you. And what's the time of death? When you go, when you expire. Take your last breath, time of death. And that breath animates the flesh. That breath is the same breeze in the trees and the waves on the ocean. That's it. All right, so we're talking about how do you cultivate it? How do you not lose it? How do you keep it? These are methods of doing it. This is written in 239 BCE. The reason, and of course it's written for modern day English, the flowing water does not become putrid, and the pivots, the hinges of a door are not eaten by insects, is because they move. The physical body is like this too. If the body does not move, then the essential qi does not flow. If this does not flow, then the qi clogs up. This also works on, is appropriate to, relevant for just movement or exercise. And we have a guy, Darren Sherbane, who is an exercise physiologist. Not like anyone you'll ever meet, ever. Anyway, if you join our groups, he's on Tuesdays and shows you how to move. Not a lot. Did you know 70 seconds of stair climbing increases natural killer cells sixfold. Did you know how many sit to stands can you do in 15 seconds? Rapid acceleration or short duration increases type 2 muscle fibers, which reverses sarcopenia. Anyway, and all this stuff is well documented. I never say anything that I haven't read. Okay, I just want you to see this. Digest, rest, breathe, restore is the parasympathetic. How do we get the parasympathetic? This was a very, well, okay, so what we look at is heart variability. That is the time between each beat. Is controlled by the autonomic nervous system, sympathetic and parasympathetic. All right? Okay, and the more sympathetic it is, the less the variability, heart rate variability. The more parasympathetic, the more variability. That means you have a flexible, ready to go, resilient system, and you're stronger. All right, we know that, right? It has to do with the nicotinic acetylcholine receptors. Acetylcholine is what the parasympathetic nervous system uses. Acetylcholine, okay? But we have those kind of receptors on macrophages, on B cells, on all kinds of cells in the immune system. So they're directly affected by the parasympathetic. So the thing is, since the parasympathetic is going to shut off the fear response, it's going to do all the things we need and enhance the immune system. The thing is, how do we get it going? Well, here's an interesting thing. Remember, if you reduce the pro-inflammatory cytokines like tumor necrosis factor alpha, IL-1B, and IL-6, and NF-kappa beta, et cetera, like that, you shut down the ability for CFCs to grow. Anyway, all of the parasympathetic nervous system, it's a bidirectional. It comes from the vagus nerve, which starts at the brain stem. And they call it vagus because it's same as vagrant or, it's wandering because it goes everywhere. Everywhere. It goes and it delivers and it takes information back. Right? Well, one of its first stops, and by the way, it's cranial nerve number 10. We have 12 cranial nerves. Anyway, two branches off of each of the main branches coming from the vagus nerve that go to the larynx. So when you talk, sing, you're activating your parasympathetic and you get increased vagal tone and you get all these good things from that. So humming, so if you're going to go into a situation where you got to talk to a boss or someone that you don't quite like, just and hum silently. Do it. Hum throughout the day. And by the way, you shouldn't go see to the House of Horrors. If you go to the House of Horrors, it doesn't need I say anymore. All right. Anyway, so meditation, mindfulness, qigong, qigong, and listening to music, not hard rock. Actually, they have found reduces cognitive decline in elderly. Post-traumatic stress syndrome is what people get when they go into a horrible situation like a war or walk into the sorcerer's office and they say, you're going to die. You're going to die. This is, okay. After that event, it's called post-traumatic stress syndrome. What's different with people who have CFCs is that they have not only PTSD, they have TCSD, current traumatic stress disorder. Because every day someone says that word. You say that word. Every time you say that, what's your prognosis, your treatment? Any of those words, you're back. So the person with CFCs has got PTSD and CTSD. These are the real heroes of our world. I'm telling you. I've been on the sidelines the whole time and just I couldn't do it. I just, I really have the most incredible admiration for you people. Anyway, the point here is that the studies show that by stimulating the vagal nerve, you can basically turn off all those mechanisms. Wow. And we know that because with this, the conditioned fear response that comes, which is what PTSD is, what it does is it decreases the prefrontal cortex functions and it increases the amygdala. Again, we're getting a continual mini amygdala hijacking. And you can undo that by stimulating the vagal nerve. That's like, what? Okay. So where are we go? How are we going to go to Vegas? Okay, we're going to go to Vegas not only this weekend. Let's just stay there. Okay. So deep breathing, right? Slow, deep breaths. Pranayama. Every meditation, Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, all of them focus on the breath. The movements are made according to the breath. Pranayama, it's all breath. I mean, if you are angry, it's like your breathing is shallow and rapid, right? If you are very, very afraid, you're quiet, right? No, if you're angry, it's like, okay. So breathing is a reflection of your mind. And when everything's okay, you go. So when they say take a deep breath, this is all real, 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 real. Remember, when your breath goes, your body turns back to Earth, not to Wisconsin, not to Germany, not to Africa, not to China, Earth. So by the way, folks, we're not different. We're just Earthlings, like different flowers. Daisies are more beautiful than orchids. Come on. We're all the same. Well, what else? Cold thermogenesis, okay? Your body gets really cold. What happens? What happens? Your autonomic nervous system goes into action. You've got to constrict and da. I worked with Dr. Kobayashi for 20 years. He had 2 dunking baths. Dunking means they were vertically longer than horizontal, and you could dunk easily. In between the 2 baths was a little table with a 1-minute glass instead of an hour glass, a 1-minute thing. One was really cold and one was really warm, according to you. I mean, it's not, what's really cold for you and it's really warm for you. So you get into the cold first, and you dunk, you turn the thing over 1 minute, then you go over the other one, 1 minute. 9 colds, 8 hots. Your autonomic nervous system is completely reset. What else does it? Foot reflexology, regular neck and shoulder, okay? Very important. Exercise, movement all the time. Gut, healthy gut always comes to the gut. So bifidobacter longum. Bifidobacter is a really important group of guys. Bifidus is, yeah. Anyway, but the longum we get in yogurt and other things. But there's a lot of them. They are responsible for our immune system. Basically, you got a healthy gut, you'll be healthy. Period. All right. Now, why are they there? They're there because you're feeding. Whatever you're feeding them. So if you're feeding on a fast food diet, you're going to have a certain group of guys versus if you're feeding another kind of diet. So it's not them, again, it's you feeding them. Okay. What they incorrectly call intermittent fasting, which is just healthy eating. A fast is 24 hours without nutrients. Water, yes, but no nutrients. That's a fast. If you eat once a day, that's just healthy eating. Twice a day, that's healthy eating if it's in a short. Because how would you define intermittent fasting? Well, I fast between breakfast and then lunch, and then I fast again between a lunch and dinner. Is that intermittent fasting? Fasting is fasting. That's healthy eating. But you've got to have anywhere from 3 to 6 hours before you go to sleep so that you're empty, depending on your age. If you're 30 or under, 3 hours. 40, 4 hours. 50, 5 hours. 60 and above, 6 hours. Why? Because you will not have digested in time. So when you go to bed, you'll be absorbing glucose. You won't go into autophagy, blah, 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 blah. Okay, just do it. And one of the nice results is that you increase your heart rate variability. Yeah, all these things do. Yeah, which is associated with staying alive. So you've got to take your foot off the brakes of the immune system. And the way you do it is either you stop thinking, meditation, or faith. This was a study where they had Om chanting, right? They looked at heart rate variability. They had 19 yoga practitioners, 19 people who never did yoga, okay? and they were looking at the heart rate variability. And they did it for just 5 minutes of Om chanting. Om. Om is again is the two branches with the four branches off the vagal nerve going to the larynx. Okay. They had a incredible improvement in heart rate variability from 5 minutes. Come on, come on, come on, come on. So here's the miracle of faith, everyone. When you believe something, that means you doubt it. I believe you. I also doubt you. But when you know something, there's no doubt. So you only can believe something that's not true, like Santa Claus, Easter bunnies, politicians, World Economic Forum, that thing. You can believe them or not, but you don't believe in mountains. You don't believe in oceans. And if you grew up in the desert, you never saw either. Your friend would not say, "Do you believe in oceans?" They'd say, "Do you know about oceans?" Knowing is no doubt. When you know what's going to happen before it happens, that's faith. And I've seen it. Let me tell you real quickly. I know it's getting past my time, but here, I had a woman who just came from her sorcerer in the house of horrors. She had breast CFCs all over. And he's told her that she does not have 3 weeks to live. First of all, he doesn't know it. He doesn't even know when he's going to die. I don't know how he came up with that. I mean, I want to go back to him and get some lottery numbers for this dude, Anyway, so he told her, "You don't have 3 weeks." So she came to our center, and right in the middle of the room, they brought her in on a gurney because she couldn't breathe. Her lungs were full of CFCs. She couldn't breathe. She was on oxygen. And I walked up to her gurney and I to say hi, and she grabbed my arm and she said, "Thank God. Now I know I'm going to make it." That was it. 6 weeks later, jogging to the clinic, husband behind her in a car, make sure she's okay. 8 years later, I get a postcard from Paris. That's not the only one. I've got other stories, but I'm just telling you. When she said that, I could have said, "Okay, you just sit in the corner for 6 weeks. You'll be fine." Didn't need anything we were going to do. She took her foot off the brakes of the immune system. And that immune system, by the way, is the miracle. Don't pray for a miracle. You already got the miracle. You're alive. You're breathing. You got this incredible 37 sextillion, that's 21 chemical reactions going on every second. You're making 37 million new cells every second. And your immune system can take care of anything. You get a healthy, optimally functioning immune system. I don't care how many CFCs are in your body. Maximum 1 week and they're gone. But we got the miracles. Faith, when you know it means you got to get rid of doubt. How do you get rid of doubt? Knowledge. So stop blocking the miracle. Experienced meditators, as soon as they get it, and with this is studies, as soon as they get into that state, because they were doing catheters, of flow, and they were looking at their immune cells. Natural killer cells went through the roof. Killer lymphocytes, the macrophages, and the Tregs, which slow down the immune system, were decreased. I mean, right there, if they're high, you're in trouble. Everything got better the minute they got into that state. It's called psychoneuroimmunology, right? So of all the immunotherapies that you can ever work on, this is the king. And so it's the opposite too, psychoneuroimmunology. And you say you're going to die. So everybody, any doctors out there, stop telling your patients. And they're not patients, they're students. Don't use those ugly, ugly words. Use kind words and communicate. You're there to communicate. Okay, they are chronically fermenting cells. Anyway, that's it, you guys. So I don't know what to do from here.
All right. Thank you for joining us today. We truly appreciate your time and presence. And the full replay of the webinar will be available soon in the library page at drlodi.com. And also, if you guys are ready to explore the deeper truths and gain exclusive access to Dr. Lodi's healing insights, we recommend checking the Inner Circle membership so we can have a weekly live Zoom session with Dr. Lodi and other members in private, also with a exclusive content and protocol that is not available elsewhere. To get started, you can check out the drlodi.com/inner circle. That's it. Thank you for joining us today. Have a restful night and wonderful days. Speak to you
Let me
soon.
ask a question. Let me ask
Sure.
a question. Do we do we have a I don't know how late it is for everybody, but I'd be willing to answer a couple questions if anyone wants to ask a couple questions. If not, we'll say aloha.
Aloha.
All right. Aloha, you guys. By the way, I want to do a thing about aloha. It's a very, very important word, but not now. Okay, so we're done, right? No questions. Everyone's
Oh,
got it, right?
Dr.
Got it.
Lodi, there are some participants that want to learn more about the inner circle. Can you explain more a bit? Thank you.
Sure, sure. Uh, so on my website, drlodi.com, right? drlodi.com. You can go on there, and there's 3 membership groups in the inner circle. One is called Health and Healing, where we talk about, it's all about health and healing, from fasting to uh, food. What kind of food should you eat? What about going to sleep? All the different dancing, movement, music. Anything that has effect on taking supplements, anything to do with health and healing. The second group is about parasites, because parasites are an incredible, incredible, incredible problem that we don't even know about. And then the third one is CFCs group, CFC guidance, right? And so each group, we have our members, we have private Zoom meetings like this weekly, and then like when I do webinars, there's no fee for that at all, and then there's other written content. Plus, we all have, each one of our groups, we're on a Telegram. You all know Telegram, the app Telegram. We're a Telegram chat, so we're talking in real time. And what's amazing is that all the members, you guys all have amazing experience. You've learned a lot. You guys have been my teacher. Let's say bakwan. There's a word in Thailand. I love it. It's called bakwan. It means sweet tooth, sweet mouth. So it's not bakwan. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's true. I have learned so much from my students asking me questions that I didn't know the answer to, and I had to find them out. And teaching me things. So we're all in this together, and so we share that on our Telegram groups. So those are great. And then there's I have other things. I've written protocols for people and things like that. There's all kinds of information on there too. And then it's not just me. We have Vanessa and Darren. Darren is the kinesiologist, and Vanessa is the nutritionist. And so they have their times, and then we have for those in the CFC group, we have Kathy's Corner, and Kathy's Corner is where you can let it all out here. Let's talk. How you feeling? How do you feel? What's going on? Right. Let's get inspired. So anyway, that's that. And soon we're going to have our raw chef who will be doing demonstrations weekly on how to make healthy food. You like to eat cheeseburgers? Okay, here's a healthy one. God, if I've had people eat. Well, if it was that good, I could do it. Anyway, so that's what our inner circle is about. And by the way, if you're in the U.S., an Oasis of Healing, I formed that about 20 years ago. We've been doing it in New York. I left New York because every week, I was up in front of the medical board defending why I gave vitamin C and defending why I did there. And I got tired of that. So Arizona, it's fine. You go there and get your homeopathic license. You got to be an MD to get it. But then you can do anything an MD will do except more. So if somebody calls the board and say, he's giving this patient intravenous vitamin C, my board goes, great. Instead of, we'll investigate that. So that's what I loved about Arizona. So I went there, we started it. And so Anois Lavillians, we're there in Arizona. So if you're dealing with the CFCs, get in touch. Question.
There are some questions in the Zoom chat. You can check it
Okay.
out. Some
You want?
participant put in there.
Yeah. Okay. You can take your mute off or something if you want to ask. Who's first?
Oh, this is Cindy.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi,
I've
Cindy.
Hi, and thank you so much for doing this and just everything that you do. I appreciate you so much. I've joined your several of your Sunday night Zooms, and I've been following you for many years, and I steer everybody in your direction because I think you're doing really powerful things, and so thank you for that. Very grateful for you. I did message you. I did put a question in chat, and it was kind of a complicated scenario, but I did speak to you on a Zoom, and I had triple negative and HER2 positive, and back then, and this was in 2019, I had a double mastectomy, and I declined all a standard of care other than that. And that was really before I knew about surgery and biopsies, but I'm not going to live in regret. And I was doing fine. I found out recently that 2 years ago that they left the tumor, part of the tumor in there, and the surgeon wanted, she kind of insisted on a biopsy, and I said no, no biopsy, and she said I just want a piece of the skin. Long story short, I closed my eyes, and she actually cut it open, and I had an implant at that point because I had double mastectomy and reconstruction. I would have never let her do that. And so I had a open wound on my chest. So that might refresh your memory. And it was quite big. And ultimately, I had to have an emergency surgery because my implant was actually popping out of the hole. So it was a miracle I didn't really get an infection. So I had to have an emergency kind of, an explant, which is fine. I wanted to get rid of that. But, I told them don't touch my lymph nodes. And I've really been suffering, I guess, from cording. And my lymph node's very inflamed. I
Where?
on the same side as the breast, where the
In,
breast, the right side, and I I did a Signatera test, just for my own, for my own knowledge, and it was quite low. Like when I got the results back, it was like 1.07, and so I did it again like 4 months later, 5 months later, and it was 1.4, and that's relatively low. Um, but I still, I've never ever had issues with my limbs. I've been teaching yoga for 20 years, and I'm, vegan. I've, done parasite cleanses. I'm really on top of what I need to give my body, but I'm really struggling with this lymph, and the cording is pretty. I'm actually in the middle of a yoga session with a client right now, and I asked her, "Can we please listen to this?" And I noticed you asked if there were any questions, so I'm on my yoga mat in pigeon right now, but I'm in great pain, and my lymph nodes are on that side are they're struggling, and I'm trying to clear my kidney. I'm trying to, I have a rebounder. Do you have any advice for me?
sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. First of all, excuse me. If anyone thinks that I was exaggerating when I said House of Horrors, this is just one example of what they do every second on this planet to people,
You're
right?
right.
It's
You're
it's
s-
called mayhem. It's called mayhem. I got
you're
kicked off. I got kicked off TikTok for saying,
You're so right. And I had major PTSD for a year and a half. I had that open wound on my breast, so frightened to go back. And I
right.
my
No, I mean,
insurance, I don't know what to do. And I hate to, it's a very prestigious medical school in Northern California. That's all I'm going to say. And
well,
I
the
don't
worst.
subscribe to their stuff. And she was, I told her, I said, don't speak over my body like that. Like, I'm just going to
Yeah,
use you for blood work and ultrasounds. That's it. And she doesn't like me. She's still pressing for me to do their poisons after 6 years.
listen. They are sorcerers. I am not. This is sorcery.
I believe
It is
you.
all definition. It's sorcery. It's modern day sorcery. Anyway, it's evil, evil, evil. And the problem with it's going on with you and with all of us that are here is that we've had a spell put upon us, and that spell affects us. And the only way out is yoga, stuff like that,
Mhm.
meditation, all
Mhm.
that. Okay, very, very important to have that really strong practice in your life. But the other thing is we need to get rid of all potential causes. Because remember, we now know that the reason this happens is loss of 60% mitochondria has to, the cell has to ferment,
Mhm.
survival.
Mhm.
So what is causing that, right? And so you start with the head. And even if you had a real biological dentist, which are hard to find, there's hard to find as a real medical doctor. But if you had a real one who used 3D cone beam and made sure you don't have anything going on, I mean, if you had an extraction of your wisdom tooth and they do a 3D cone beam and they say it's fine, then you need to get a new dentist. Okay, there are no dental extractions are okay because they don't take out the periodontal ligament, and therefore you wind up getting jaw cavitations. It's called fatty degeneration, osteonecrosis.
I
And
definitely have that. Like I definitely have had root canals on the corresponding teeth. I'm just in a financial position where I can't.
wait. You haven't had them cleaned out yet?
No.
Okay, well, there's your problem, Cindy. I
Okay.
mean, I'm telling you, I'm going to tell you
So I've
something.
already
I
had a
don't
root canal and a cap. Do I just pull those teeth? Like, what do I
listen,
do?
listen. A root is a root canal. A root
Uh-huh.
canal is where when they go in,
Right.
they they drill out the pulp. That means they take out the blood vessels, they take out the nerves,
Yeah.
lymphatics,
Yeah.
and then they fill it with cement. Then
Right.
they put a cap on it. Now, what
Right.
happened is when they filled it with cement and they didn't sterilize it. Uh, you've got trillions of microorganisms that are in there now. Now there's no blood supply, so there's no uh, the white blood cells can't get there. So there's no immune response, and they start to mutate, and they mutate, and they produce all these biotoxins, and they just happen to
Right.
be just like a house has circuits. You know, your kitchen, your bedroom, your bathroom light are on one circuit. Light goes out. You put in change the fuse. Same thing. So this is real. And I'll tell you from my own, I had two wisdom teeth pulled when I was young. I don't even, anyway, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, I developed atrial fibrillation for no reason. I was
Oh,
always
wow.
tired. I was always tired. I didn't know what it was. Anyway, I was in the U.S. training a doctor, and I went to get some training myself from Dr. Simon Yu, who did acupuncture meridian. And I said, by the way, what's going on with my heart? And he said, oh, it's number 16. And he did 16 and 17. I said, well, I had those extracted 20 years ago. They said, they don't hurt. There's no pain. He goes, that's it. So anyway, the day before I was at my clinic, we did an EKG. It looked like I was in complete heart block. It was ridiculous. So anyway,
Wow.
I went, they took out, and there was nothing there, right? The gums, they were healthy and all that. Went through, got into there, found the pus and the fragments of tooth and the periodontal ligament, took them out, irrigated it with ozonated water, then took ozone gas, put it up there, and then sealed it real immediately with the PRF that it's been spun, platelet-rich fibrin been spun from my blood. 4 days, my heart went back to normal.
Wow. And I believe that.
Been
I
that way 2
totally
years.
believe that.
A woman, it's not a belief. You have to know it. This woman had inflammatory breast CFCs, which are go quickly. Anyway, so she was going to Sloan Kettering and she was going to go on a clinical trial. I said, you know, that's an experiment. She goes, I don't care. I don't care. I said, okay. So I found out she had a root canal on that breast. And I said, listen, go see this guy. And he did it the right way with the ozone and all that. Okay. So she went to Sloan Kettering 6 weeks later to begin the trial. And they said, I'm sorry, you're no longer eligible.
Yeah. I
I
heard
mean,
you tell that story.
it's bad. mean, that's how precise. So for you to say that you have that and you haven't taken care of that, there's nothing more important for you than to do that.
Okay.
And have it done by the right person. And you know, I would definitely I'd do whatever I have to do to go see Dr. Emma Brahmayan in Glendale, California. She's the
You
best
know
in the
what?
world.
Let me grab a pen really quick. Can I write that name down again?
Yeah. And you can just her email is
What's her
Dr.
name?
Emma Abramayan, and she's in Glendale, California.
And how do you
At
spell her last name?
Abramayan.
Okay. And okay.
You just go dr Emma DDS at Gmail. Dr Emma at DDS. You know. So anyway, let's just tell you so. At 15, she was Russian. She's Russian. She went to medical
Okay.
school at age 15. After medical school, she went to dental school. Then she did a fellowship in oral surgery and then a fellowship in orthodontist. Then she married, she did a stupid thing, married an American man, came to America, had to go to dental school again. Anyway, she's amazing.
Okay.
So I would go see if listen, I'm telling you, this is it. If you're doing all the things that you're doing and you're having problems, it's because we haven't removed the cause. Now, and
Okay.
everybody, if you and you've got to get it done by the right. You can't say it's like people say, "Well, I tried that. I did alternative med." Well, what did you do? You know, is your doctor when they give you vitamin C? How much are they giving you? Is it sodium ascorbate or is it ascorbic acid? Are they measuring your plasma ascorbate levels before and after? How do they know they're reaching? They don't. None of your doctors do that. I don't have to ask you. I know.
Yeah,
They
and
don't do.
I couldn't even afford any of the I did very minimal, I did very minimal. I mean the I think the biggest thing that I did that I think was besides my faith in God and my body and the way that our bodies work was just stepping out of that mind space of fear and just realizing this is a natural function of the body and I have to balance my body out. And I wasn't able to I couldn't afford to do, IV vitamin C's and stuff like that because the scamdemic ruined my 20-year yoga career because I wouldn't get
Uh,
vaccinated. So there's that. But I've had a lot of teeth pulled, a lot, like 5
okay,
teeth
so
on the bottom.
every one of them, they left the periodontal ligament, which is a highway for the microorganisms to get into your jaw. So you have jaw cavitations, which is the same thing as a root canal. So you've got to get this taken care of. And in other words, once you do, you're okay. It's over. It's you made it. See that's how important it is. So whatever you got to do, and she's the one. She's the one. And
Okay.
the other beautiful thing about Emma is that she doesn't overcharge. She just what it's worth. You know, where like I'll someone is saying that they get a quote of like $30,000. It was like only 8,000 or something. You know, she's like she doesn't think that way. She just does. So that's the other good thing. You're not going to be overcharged. You're going to get the value, but you're also getting like the best. So it's definitely
Okay.
worth it.
I want to.
Thank you so much for that. And is there because I would
Oh,
definitely, I'm gonna
who
have
goes
to,
there?
hit up some friends or family
I
to
didn't recognize.
address that. But is there any other things that I can do specifically with diet or other things that to help take a little bit of the swelling down?
Uh, well, okay. So, what is is the swelling? You have to understand swelling. Is it lymphatic? Is it lymphatic congestion? Is there some inflammation going on and it's some healing? So we're not sure
There's
what it is.
there's
However,
there's one lymph node that's definitely pronounced, and it's been suspicious for a long time. But I told her, I go, don't try to scare me with those words. Those are the words you guys use. And I said, don't touch my lymph nodes. And I was emphatic about that every single time. And they're questioning me, ridiculing me. They were
right, so you should never go back to them again.
mocking my
Never
faith in
go back.
God.
Never go back again. Never go back again. Okay, so never go back again. You can get any holistic minded MD to write. You don't need to go see them. Get them to write your orders for testing if you need testing. By the way,
Yeah.
once you get health restored, keep it, and then the day you no longer need to go in for testing is the day you know you've gotten rid of your fear.
Right. Right.
Okay. Every time you go to get tested, it's out of fear, and that's still active. So you remember that. You got to know that woman. I'm telling you, when she said,
So,
"Okay, I know I'm gonna make it." All right. So what can you do? Always juicing. You know, 3 liters a day, no eating, or water fasting. All that always will reduce inflammation and help healing. And lymphatic. Okay, remember parasympathetic. Do Om meditation. Get shoulder and neck massages. And then when you're walking around the house, hum. Keep and do pranayama in the mornings and afternoons, and all the things that you know how to do. If you stimulate your parasympathetic and you do fasting, it gets better.
And
So,
I've not done fasting yet. So how do I ease my way into that?
well, it's your mind. Once you say I'm going to fast, you can fast. First 3 days are the hardest because you're dealing with a monster called appetite. But once that's taken care of, on day 4, you wake up liberated, and then you'll be okay. And then as long as you're drinking enough water and getting a little bit of salt twice a day, then yeah, you'll be fine. But so do it. Try start with a 5-day. But in terms of eliminating CFCs, the real work of a fast starts on day 11. But here's the thing: if you don't unplug the cause, it doesn't matter. It'll just keep coming back.
Right.
So that's why you got to, like, whatever you got to do, call Emma first, have a conversation, find out how much you need to get to, and do it that way.
Okay.
All right.
You're wonderful. I'm going to look into your group, and I've steered so many people your way, and you're just such a blessing. I thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're
all
welcome.
right. Dr. Lodi, there are some members in this community in the Zoom too. I think it will be great if some of the members can sharing their input and their experience on the inner circle, so everyone can see what to expect. We got Darlene, Ron, Alice, Dana here, and if you guys love to, we would love to hear your input. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll jump in if you want. This is Dana.
Oh, thank you, Dana.
So, what I'd like to say about the groups is that there's some kind of a, like the group kind of gels or something. It's like you get to know the people, the energy of the people, and you feel connected to them because they're experiencing something, or have been through something that you've been through, so you feel that towards them. But that's a nice thing. But because before I used to see Dr. Lodi for some consults at the clinic, and that was great. But I was always wondering, who were these other people that you saw? You didn't really know them. And so that is a really, really nice thing. The second thing is that I really work on my protocols, and I constantly, I start something and then something happens and I have questions, and I feel like I can get through the protocols so much faster when I can have access to him, to ask him questions every week or every chance I can get to ask a question. So for me, I'm just going at a much better rate of speed through this thing because I'm not getting hung up on stuff and have to wait so long to talk to him. So that's kind of what I want to say. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like an ongoing consultation. I mean,
Yes.
really, it's what it is. So yeah, it's good.
I'm in the group, and I just want to say I agree 100% with what Dana said. I also love that Dr. Lodi doesn't just tell us what to do. He teaches us why he's saying those things, telling us
Yes.
how to live a healthy life.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And with that in mind, that's why answering questions, I would never answer a question. I'm gonna, and so people get angry or get to the point. But what I'm doing is I want to give you the understanding so that you could have answered the question. And that will also eliminate prophylactically questions you might have had because you will already know. So the idea is to give you understanding. You know that old expression, Chinese expression, you give a man a fish, you feed him today, you teach him how to fish, you feed him the rest of his life. Right? Well, we don't kill fishes, but I mean fish. But anyway, that's the idea. So to give you understanding instead of answering this, because what if I said, okay, 23 grams? You could have gone on you know, chat GP, whatever his name is, and he would have given the answer. So that's not what you're looking for. You're really looking for understanding. You're looking because and the problem is this, because you haven't specifically been trained in this area. You go on the internet and you find out there's like, whoa, it's just everybody that says yes to this, there are an equal number of people saying no. So of course you're going to be bewildered and you're not going to make sense out of it all. But once you have a foundation of actual knowledge, now you'll know, oh, okay, this guy's like 80% false, but that 20% is worth listening. But you'll be able to know that. So you need that. So that's what I like to do, is give understanding.
Well, Dr. Lodi, you also say that basically if you're in the groups, you pretty much never need another doctor. And I think that that's true. I mean, I have zero interest in trying to seek somebody out. What can they do for me? What they can do nothing for me. They've only hurt me. So and I feel like I can dictate my own health and affect my own health just by the knowledge. You have to study, you have to pay attention, but you get what you need. That's what I'd say.
Excellent.
I'll also add, Alice here, that it's that the CFCs we developed were just like an immediate response to something we were doing or not doing right in our lives. So once we're over that part of it, we're now on this super highway of health that we wouldn't have been on had we not developed the CFCs to start with. So my diet's completely improved, my outlook, my calmness. I'm a much calmer person than I used to be. I have, Dr. Lodi's taught us to develop techniques to stay very focused and calm and in the present moment. And these are health benefits in every aspect of our lives that will take us through the rest of our lives. And we can't even foresee all the conditions that we would have developed had we not made these changes, arthritis and, degenerative disease conditions from an average person's diet and mindset. So for me, I have to admit now that it really has been a blessing, massively in disguise at the time. And it's like a whole new world that's opened up of interest and fascination in the more intricate details of the mind-body connection and how it's going to benefit us the rest of our lives, and a whole new hobby as well. I mean, my CFCs have gone, I feel wonderful all the time, and it's just a wonderful group to belong to, and a sense of belonging that you don't have when you first get this horrid diagnosis. You feel very isolated. You don't want to talk to anyone around you. You don't want their opinions. You don't know what to do. You're frozen with fear. And all of that's gone. We have a wonderful group of people. We're all on this journey of wellness, and it's far beyond just understanding CFCs. It goes far beyond that. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, very good. That's good.
It's Ron. Ron Rodriguez. I'm a new member. I've only been here for 2 months, and I thank every day, and I thank God for letting me find this group. The group is amazing. Everybody is tight. In the chat, you have any questions, everybody answers the question. I look forward to the meetings. This group, I've gotten hope. Over here, there's hope. I didn't know what to do. I was confused. I was checking out. Okay, I diagnosed CFCs. I checking out. I put my house under land trust. I put everything so my family can can avoid probate. Okay, I put everything of value in there because I thought this was it for me, you know. And I discovered with this group that no, there is a different way. And you've opened my mind, you know what I mean? Because I was a Rockefeller groupie before before I got here. I just a flunky, you know, the god in the white coat, you know. I did, and then I realized in this short period of time how these guys are assassins, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
You know, and this is what I told my audiologist. You're what I didn't know better. You did a biopsy. You assassin. He tells
Yeah.
me, "What did you call me?" Apologies. Did I offend you? I meant to say Doctor Assassin.
Okay,
And then
good.
on the second breath, he told me, "When are we going to do surgery?" I'm never going to come back
Yeah.
over here.
Yeah. 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 No, Bab, it is. Listen, and listen, and when I hear someone say, well, my oncologist is a nice guy or a nice girl, and they really mean well. No, they don't. No, they don't. Because they know what they're doing.
Mhm.
They don't read that stuff. You don't have to read it. You just have to look at your patients. You know what's going on with your patients. You watch them all die. So that tells you right there. Okay. And then the other thing is too, why is it that when their wives or husbands get this problem, they send them to me? Or another one, I had a woman who 28-year-old single mom, widely disseminated non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, right? The guy, her sorcerer told her, your daughter is going to be an orphan. Please do something to help avoid that, or take care of her. Well, in that sweet bedside manner, right? Anyway, she came to me 6 months later, went back to him, clean scan, and showed it to him. She goes, you want to know what I did? And he said, no. He said, no. There you go. Why? Because he doesn't want to change or know what he, that's called mercenary. I don't know another word for it. So I'm just saying, whether knowingly or not, they're going to kill you. They're going to kill you with words. And remember, don't never go into a building where one of the exits says morgue. All right? Because I wouldn't even go in there to use the bathroom. The minute you get in there, your door's open, you're in, it's remember, I don't know, on Halloween, you'd go to those scary places, right? And that's what that is. The minute you walk in there, you're in a house of horrors. And all you gotta do is go up into one of those rooms. Look what they do. They dismember people. They take their job. I'm not exaggerating, believe me. I'm not exaggerating. And now they're injecting their mRNA, the RNA things. And these guys, so by the way, when this book comes out, you're gonna see, because uh I kind of really nail it. Because I have to call it. So we'll see if I'm still alive after it. I don't think they care anymore. They all know now that we all know, and they want us to know, because you know why they want us to know now? Now that the cat's out of the bag, they want us to know because that increases and maintains the level of fear. The standard of scare goes not only with the field of medicine, but also in life in general, right? Because they got to get you scared in order to go get a shot to protect you from something you've never seen. And you got to be pretty good. You got to tell, how good are these guys? It took them 1 month to shut down the world. I mean, you got to know what you're doing. They shut down the world. And by the way, I don't know if you know, but if you go to the World Economic Forum's website, they even talk about it, that it was a psychological experiment.
Yeah, right.
They admit it. So anyway, you guys, it's language. I wanted to get that point across. We have to understand how important. Just like when if someone walks up to you and says, I hate you. You're disgusting. Or if someone says, you're beautiful. I love you. You're fat. Those words just change us. Words are our, God spoke the universe into existence. Right? So words are creation. That's how things happen. So we have to be very, very careful. That's what abracadabra, as I speak, so I create. Right? Remember, we're 70, 80% water. And we saw what Emoto did when he froze the water after having certain words on there. And it doesn't matter what the word is. I mean, what language is, it's the intention. So, and that's the thing. So bless bless your food, bless the person next. Even if you don't say it out loud, say it in your head. Say it in your head. All right? Because we can either kill or heal with our mouth, with our words. And be kind, and that's it. And be kind to yourself. And also a visualization. I got to add this slide to that show. But here's the thing. If you have a tumor somewhere, or many, or whatever, draw the picture of them. Draw it out exactly how you see them. And then right next to it, draw them in half. And then next to that, draw another picture of them in half. And keep doing it until there's nothing. So, because throughout the day, whatever you're doing, your mind is going to land on that. And when it lands there, don't leave it in existence, defined, a 3 by 4.6 centimeter. Don't leave it like that. Immediately shrink it. So if you think it, shrink it. If you think it, shrink it. If you think it, shrink it. So your mind lands there inadvertently, or just the way the mind is, and then you shrink it, and then quickly, grab some headphones, grab someone and start talking to them, read a book. You have to immediately not go back there. Okay, you want the last picture that your mind had of a beautiful breast, a beautiful liver, a beautiful pancreas, clean. Go look at pictures of healthy breasts, of healthy pancreas, whatever it is that your situation is. Get pictures of them and put them all over your house, so that you visualize that the power of this mind is. That's it. That woman, 3 weeks to live. Oh yeah. Well, now I know I'm going to make it, man. So I'm just telling you, that's it. And one other thing I didn't mention in the talk, but I should. I added this to them. In Thailand, there's a Japanese lab has licensed a Thai lab with its technique. What they do is that you give them you do blood test. They spin out your natural killer cells, and then they measure how much gamma interferon they're producing, which tells them how active they are. So if it's over 500, everything's great. If it's between 200 and 500, it's borderline. And if it's below 200 and you don't have CFCs, you will. So then if you do, so we would test people, and if they were 500 or below, we would then you send in another sample, they spin out the CFCs, the natural killers, and that, it's very sterile conditions, they're wearing moon suits and stuff. They put them in a Petri dish and they activate them with IL-2, interleukin 2. And they know they're activated because they're now producing lots of good gamma interferon. Then they take those and they put them into a growth medium, a proprietary growth medium, and they expand them out to 10 billion. So you get an IV injection of your own activated natural killer cells every week. Pretty cool. Because they get inactivated by all the stuff we talked about, right? So here's what I did. I wanted to check and find out if what appeared to be true to me I could have objectively prove it. So I would check their gamma interferon at this lab and at different people. And the people that were saying, yeah, oh my God, that's right, diet, they were all happy like that. All right. They, when I checked them, their gamma interferon was sky high and they were doing great. The people who were still afraid, within 48 hours, they lost that activation of the natural killers. That is how powerful this is. All right. Psychoneuroimmunology goes both ways. All right. If anybody is Christian, you know the story of the woman who ran up the stairs because she knew if she touched Jesus's robe, she would be healed. And he turned to her and he said, it wasn't me, it was your faith. All right. So if you had but the faith of a mustard seed, you could move the mountain, but you wouldn't move it because it's exactly where it needs to be. That's the thing. It's just the power of faith. The power of faith is knowing what's going to happen before it happens. And the only way you're going to start to know stuff is to change your database, your knowledge. You've got to know. If you ever doubt that you can heal, you get a knife, you cut your finger, you watch it for the next 72 hours. And you'll see that indeed you heal. And the only reason you won't be healing is because something is obstructing it, whether it's physical, mechanical, or something's feeding it. Otherwise, that's what it does. That's what it does. It doesn't do anything else. You have to understand that. You have to understand that. You have to. We're talking about healing, and healing is what's happening every nanosecond, picosecond. All right, and it can only happen if all biological and psychological needs are satisfied. Then it works. And if those needs aren't satisfied, it has to adapt. And those adaptations are what the sorcerers call diseases. High blood pressure, diabetes, and when you're born in the hospital because pregnancy is an illness, you know that, right? It's a disease, right? So you're born in a hospital and immediately you get injected. Immediately. After they slap you on the ass, make you cry, then you go, welcome to Earth, kid. Okay, and here, you're born in a hospital, and the unspoken, fundamental, a priori philosophy of everyone, of society is this: health, impossible; disease, inevitable. You better get insurance. So you get insurance. Why do you get insurance? Because you're planning on getting sick. Wait, your baby's healthy? Quickly, take him to the doctor. Do a well baby check. Want to make sure that he doesn't stay healthy. I mean, you have to realize. I mean, you have to realize what they've gotten us believing it. We do it now. Women go in and they get their breasts squashed and irradiated. What? And you do that every year, you're going to get CFCs from them. Now, you notice it's a male-dominated, screwed up world, of course, but you notice that there's no tests for testicular CFCs, right? They don't take men's testicles, squash them, and irradiate them, right? Only women's breasts. That's what I told the radiologist. He was telling me, I wrote a prescription for a breast sonogram. Well, not until we've had a mammogram. I said, okay, as soon as you squash your testicles and radiate them, I'll send all my patients for. He hung up on me, but good. Don't do anything. They just stay away. And I would never get medical insurance. You know why? It's a ticket. I don't want a ticket to the big house. I want to show up at their door and they say, we don't want this guy. Trauma, urgencies, you got to go. Baby's coming out feet first, you don't go to the herbalist. Okay. But other than that, so you got to know when to go. You go to them when you got trauma or serious situation that they need right away. Otherwise, you don't. And you just got to know that. So it's not that we're going to throw them out. Yeah, we're going to use them. Will we ever do surgery? Yeah. So we got to know when to do what. That's the thing. There's a time for them, right? But you don't do surgery when you don't need to because it causes problems. It makes it worse, right? So if you're going to do it, you prepare for it and you do it electively, not urgently. and you prepare it. You take pectosol, you do certain things so that you're going to minimize all the problems with potential problems. And because you needed to do it. But you got to know when. You don't just do it out of protocol. It's part of the protocol. All right. So I'm just saying. So integrative oncology is knowing all the different disciplines and knowing what is necessary, what works under what circumstances, and using them appropriately, like being a conductor of an orchestra. All right. Any other question? I had 3 root canals moved in March with biological dentistry and did DNA connections, but the tumor burden in breast has not gone away. All right. So, was it on your was the root canal on your, were any of the root canals on your breast meridian? Anyway, maybe this person left, but even if they weren't, even if the root canals were not on your breast meridian, when they're in there, like they have a basic direct effect along that meridian, but just being in there, remember what they're doing. You've got all these mutated wild species producing biotoxins that the immune system can't get to. So I always picture like you're in a big glass cage room, and there's like 20 Doberman pinchers outside. They can't get in. So the root canal is that. They can't get in, but the immune system is on overdrive. And the immune system is freaking out. And the immune system is diverted away from healing. So even if it's not directly on a meridian, you have a root canal, you got to get it out. Same with cavitations from incorrectly extracted teeth, which is all dentistry except for biological. So you have that. So now, please understand that that's not the only cause. And I don't know how long you had them taken out, but it'll take time. It'll take you removed it, but anyway, the other thing is, have you done a thorough juice cleanse? Have you done to make it celery, cucumber, spinach, kale, lemon, and then whatever you want, apple, pineapple, whatever you want to make it delicious. Put enough sugar to make it natural sugars from fruit to make it delicious. Because if you don't love it, it's going to hurt you. Because your feeling of being deprived will suppress your immune system. And that little bit extra glucose is not a big deal. In fact, I'll talk about that some other time. But anyway, don't worry about that. Make it taste good. You drink 3 quarts a day, 4 quarts a day. Don't eat. Do that for 3 weeks, 6 weeks, as long as you can. You will go through. You're gonna go through a beautiful, beautiful transition. You're gonna turn into a butterfly and fly away. All right. So do this. Get some colonics. Make sure you're doing. See if you can find a good lymphatic therapist, certified lymphatic therapist. Hard to find. Or just keep your moving around all day. Go to bed before 9 or by 9 at latest. Stop eating 5 hours before sleep. And put at least 18 hours between your last meal of one day and your first meal the next day. And then, vitamin A, D, C, essential. Enough of them. Melatonin. Balance your thyroid with iodine. And your adrenals. There's protocols to doing this, and you can get it from the groups but I can't go into it all right now, but I'm just saying, if you do all this, you're going to heal. Are chronically fermenting cells actually parasites? Parasites are. There's no way to answer that question. Because there are different kinds of parasites, remember, right? You know, there's worms, protozoa, and there's arachnids, ectoparasites. There's all kinds. But however, there's also nano-sized parasites that we can't see normally. But that's what the Royal Raymond Rife found, right? And that's what Dr. Weber found in Munich, Germany. They had these incredibly powerful microscopes and were able to see these nano-sized things. And that's what Rife did in USC medical centers in 1930. What was it? Yeah, in the 30s. Anyway, called them BX and BY, and he set the frequencies at that, put the same frequency that these little nano-sized organisms were producing, and 100% went away. So, and they've been seeing these things way back when. So the point is this, that the answer is yes and no. We don't even know all the parasites. We know there's the ones that we know about, but there are nano-sized that we've never even seen. And the conventional a Warlock system actually acknowledged the fact that we have nano-sized bacteria, because they didn't think that bacteria is supposed to be micro-sized, not nano-sized, right? So when they discovered, and I think again it was in the 70s, 72, I think, I don't remember. They call it CPMs, calcium producing microorganisms. They found them at the nidus, at the root, at the foundation of atherosclerotic plaque. So you get you've heard of they call it arteriosclerosis, atherosclerosis, or atheromas. Those would block up arteries, right? And you have problems with that. So found out that at the center, at the root of each one of them, is this little organism producing calcium. And then the cholesterol, everything gathers there. They found that out. Now they can't deny it. Anyway, so the answer is, yeah, we don't know. I would say yes and no, but can it happen otherwise? Yeah. Anything that is, it's still anything. Because remember, this is reproducible. You knock out 60% of the mitochondria, they will start to ferment. They have to. It's a survival mechanism. So there are multiple causes, but whether it's that nano-sized parasite or a big parasite or radiation or whatever it is, it successfully knocked out 60% of the mitochondria, and the cell had to, fundamentally, that's it. So therefore, our work needs to be in restoring that. And if we understand that, it takes all the mystery out of it. All right. Breast CFCs have turned into an open external wound. First of all, you got to do all the things we talked about, cleansing, and you got to do that. You got to pull the plug on this process. Now, for that, and we all need to do a couple peptides, thymosin alpha-1 and methionine and enkephalin, because we need to. They're very important. I'll talk about that at other times. But if you got an open wound, then the best way to deal with it depends on what you have. If you've got necrotic tissue, where you get a lot and it starts to smell really bad, it's necrotic. There's, when I don't know if you've got that. It's just an open wound. That's because I've had people come in. It looks like cauliflower. It's like crazy, but that's when you have to use maggot therapy. Maggots because they only eat dead tissue, and there's medical maggots and all that, and there's a way to do it. Not everybody does it. We do it, but anyway. But you don't have necrotic tissue. It might a little bit here and there. But you then every day you get fresh aloe, get the big thick fat aloe leaves, cut off, the bottom part, the skin, and then macerate it like that, and then just put it over, and then tape it, and change it like at least 3 times a day. Magic. The other one is 7% Lugols, iodine, 7% Lugols, iodine. Kills CFCs. You put it around the wound, you put it on the wound, it might hurt, but if you can, it doesn't hurt, it's good. Aloe is healing. But you got to pull the plug on what's keeping it going. And a lot of times it's the immune system's being inactivated by the tumor microenvironment. And that's why you need the methionine and kefalin and you need the thymosin alpha 1 to restore immunity and learn to turn the monster off. Well, I am in Lansing, Michigan. Who was in Texas recommended for what? The doctor? The name of the dentist, Emma Abramayan, EMMA, Abramayan, Abramayan. Dr. Emma DDS at Gmail. Amazing. You know, she had found something near the root of one of my teeth. She said, I'm going to inject it with ozone. I'm thinking, okay. And she was done. What? How did you inject all the way down into my root and get the ozone? And I didn't feel it. Yeah, 24-hour fast, beneficial. No. Every fast is beneficial. Every meal you didn't eat is the best meal you've ever had. Power is in not doing. The fecundation that occurs during winter is why we have beautiful springs. So, yeah, 24-hour fasts are fantastic. But do 20, that's a fast. And then eat within a eat healthy. Stop eating 5 hours before sleep and eat within a 4-hour window, 6-hour window max. That, just do that.
Dr. Lodi, what is
yes?
So where does about an 18-hour a day fast fit into the scheme of fasting? I mean, I do that on a regular basis. Is that pretty good?
No, exactly. The 18 hours means you're eating for 6 hours, or you eat in a 6-hour window, and that's great because the longer you don't eat, because see, when we're eating, our body is busy assimilating it and dealing with it, digesting it, assimilating. It's a lot of work. And so we have X amount of energy. And so the energy is being expended for the most part on dealing with that. And there's less energy available for cleaning because there's metabolic byproducts and repair. So when we stop eating, there's more energy for cleaning and repair. It really fundamentally is that way. So the longer you're not eating, the longer you're cleaning and repairing, which is, yeah. And if you stop eating 5 hours before sleep, you're going to go to with that whatever you ate is going to pretty much no longer be. It will be being absorbed. Because if it's being absorbed and then your body's getting the glucose, then you don't need to go through autophagy and clean up stuff. So you want to make sure you go to bed empty so your body has to jump into autophagy and start cleaning up.
Well, okay.
And that way, so 18 hours is fantastic. 20 hours is fantastic. 22 hours. I mean, eating one meal a day would be great. So it doesn't matter that much. So you could say, okay, and then it's not that hard. So let's say you're going to go to bed at 9, 5 hours. That means you stop eating at 4. All right. And if you're going to do 6 hours, that means you can have your first meal at 10. That's easy. You get 10 a.m. and you finish at 4. But if you do 4 hours, you start at noon. It's not that big a deal. We think of it's a big deal. But by doing that, you also increase your heart rate variability, which is important. We talked about with your parasympathetic. You also all sorts of great things happen with that 18 hours of not eating. All right. And 20 hours is even better. But yeah.
Well, the thing that I got out of it too was that, as you were saying, you expend so much energy in digestion. So, best to do that during the daylight hours, as is talked about, because then your body has the most energy to do it. And I can't believe the difference if I get too close to the darkness, man, I don't feel good if I eat too late.
Exactly. And this book, if you guys can, I got, it's a rare book. It was published in 1890s. Okay. Anyway, it's called Talks About People Stuff, 1870. Talks about people stuff. And that's what we thought, why you don't eat when it's dark. It's beautifully written. By the way, this is when people still spoke, had a high working vocabulary.
Yeah.
And the grammar was, what we've been turned into good factory workers. Anyway, good book. I don't know what the name of it. I guess that's the name. Talks about people's stomachs. 1870. Really.
Yeah.
But anyway, it gives you all the reason why what you're saying, what you found out by being alive, is that it's true. So don't eat when it's dark. Yeah. I mean, and before too, like if you can finish 3 or 4, like I had a routine here where I was doing my work, and I would eat between 2 and 4. It was perfect. Just stay well hydrated all day, and I ate between 2 and 4. And remember, you don't have to get every nutrient every day, right? You can look at it by the week. That this week that not I got to get today, because if you do that, you're gonna. I mean, imagine 6 tablespoons of chia pudding every day with your flaxseed smoothies, your nut butters, your nuts, and then big salads. It's you might not be able to eat all of that in one day, and that's okay. But 18 hours is where all the research comes from.
Hey, that's great to know. I just try to maximize every day. If I can't do a regular fast, I just try to do that. So
absolutely. Well, that's the fast is a way of cleansing the accumulated toxins. So what you're doing is making sure that not too much are accumulating. So that's ketosis and ketogenic, how beneficial? All right. Good question. I'm glad we have time to answer that. We'll make it one of our last ones, right? Okay, here's the thing. I'll bet anybody in the group could probably answer this right now without me doing it, right? Because you've heard it a million times. Let's do it one more time. All right. We have 3 macronutrients and many micronutrients, right? Micronutrients are minerals, vitamins, and phytonutrients and stuff. The 3 macros are fats, carbs, and proteins, which is really amino acids. And we only need 9 amino acids, called essential. But you notice one of them is carbs. Carbohydrates are sugars. The fundamental, basic carbohydrate is one of the products of photosynthesis, which, by the way, is why everything is going on. Photosynthesis is the process plants. You might as well call them alchemists. They're taking light and they're turning it into electricity. Anyway, and in that process, they produce glucose. So so photosynthesis, carbon dioxide, they suck in from they breathe it in. They're drinking the water from the soil. So you got carbon dioxide and you've got water. It goes into the chloroplast. The sun hits it. You got glucose and oxygen. Yay. Glucose is the fundamental sugar, carbohydrate. It's got a lot of energy stored. Our mitochondria need what? Glucose and oxygen. Pretty amazing. Just random, just happened by random. There's no God, it's just all randomness. Evolution. So anyway, fundamental is glucose. There's only a few monosaccharides. Saccharide is sugar. Mono, like glucose, fructose, galactose, mannose. Yeah, there's not many. Okay. Fundamental monosaccharides. But glucose is the root. Now, what does it do? It gets burned for energy. Okay. No glucose, no life. The other thing that glucose is used for, because it's not only for energy, is that it provides the carbon skeleton for the body to make what it needs. It needs to make fatty acids. It needs to make nucleic acids for DNA and RNA. It needs to make amino acids. It needs to make proteins. It needs carbon, because we are carbon-based life forms. It's called organic. That's where organic comes from. Organic chemistry is the study of carbon chemistry, carbon biochemistry. Computers are silicon-based. We are carbon-based. All right, so get our carbon from glucose. So when you don't have a lot of glucose and your body starts to burn fat, you produce ketone. The metabolic byproducts of digesting fat is that you get ketones, and ketones can be used for energy. And so if your ketones are more than your glucose, which means you've got to have a GK index of less than 1, which is hard to do, very hard, then you will be in therapeutic ketosis for CFCs. Now, when we put people on, guided people through water fasting, we check their blood sugar every day, finger stick and ketones. On day 41 of a water fast, we do a stick, their glucose is normal. Their ketones are really high, but their glucose is normal. Why is their glucose normal? They're drinking water for 41 days. Because the body needs it, and it will make it if you don't give it. It's a process called gluconeogenesis. It occurs in our livers. It's what cats live on. Cats are obligate carnivores. They have to eat just flesh, right? But they have good blood sugar because their liver's turning it into glucose. Point is, if you don't eat, you're going to get it. You need a certain amount. You need a certain amount of fats, and you need a certain amount of amino acids, period. So to be in ketosis, okay, that's good. That means you're not putting in any excess, but it's not going to do the trick. And then, unfortunately, I have the greatest respect for Thomas Seyfried, who can't use the wrong word. CFC is a metabolic, 2 words, condition. So he correctly identified glutamine as being the second fuel that CFCs burn, and that's true. So they can burn or ferment or glutamine or glucose. And again, glutamine is not just for energy. We need it to grab the nitrogen so that we can produce nucleic acids, DNA, so that we can make proteins. We need that nitrogen. Got to get the nitrogen in. Get it from the glutamine. So glutamine and glucose are not just fuels, they're also for structure. You can't be without them, which is why glutamine is not an essential amino acid. It's not one that you have to eat. It's one of the 9. There are 9 essential ones that you have to eat, and if you eat those 9, you can make the other 11. It's one of those 11, so you can make it. And glutamine turns out to be the most abundant amino acid in our body. It's also the #1 fuel source for our enterocytes, cells that line our small intestines, which allow us to digest food, and which is why you give it to someone who has a leaky gut. It's also the #1 fuel source for lymphocytes, T cells, natural killer cells. You want to get rid of the glutamine? I don't think so. But unfortunately, Dr. Seyfried came up with take this drug DON and ketosis, and you can't kill whatever CFCs need. So do your other cells. They may need more, but so if you successfully starve them, you'll starve you. So what do? Restore balance. Restore balance in every system, and it'll work. I've got estrogen receptor positive. You can't give me estrogen. No, we need to balance. You need to have balanced hormones, not deficient. It's hard to get over that Rockefeller mindset, but join the group. Anyway, so ketosis and all that is good, but it's not. That's not it. That's just one aspect, and it's not even. You don't have to be. If you're eating healthy, it means you're eating in a 4-hour window, a 6-hour window, and you stopped eating at least 5 hours before sleep. You're going to be in ketosis in the morning, 100%, and you'll be in ketosis until you eat. So you'll be in ketosis every day, and you probably got there in the middle of the night. All right, so. And if you were in strict ketosis, that's not going to do it. If you still got the root canal, if you still got that, there's so many variables. We can't look at it that way. Oh, the groups we're referring to are the inner circles. You go to drlodi.com, drlodi.com, and then it says inner circle, and there are 3 groups: health and healing, parasites, and CFC. If you're in parasites, you automatically have access to the CFC stuff. I mean, to the health and healing. And then if you're in CFC group, you automatically have access to parasite and health and healing. That means you can attend all their meetings and all that stuff. All right, I think we're done.
Dr. Lodi.
Yeah.
Ron, I emailed you that pharma. In November, we discussed about the hormones and stuff.
Yeah. Okay,
I emailed
I
just
didn't.
for you to take a look at that, just to get an idea.
I will absolutely. Thank you. Indwelling drainage, abdominal ascites. Okay, what causes ascites? Ascites is basically what it is. Blood is made up of red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets, and then serum. And if you take all those cells out and just leave the serum, it's kind of the color of urine, kind of yellowish. So all the blood from the gut that's drained from the gut goes up into one vein called the portal vein, which goes into the liver. So if you've got something in your liver that's blocking that steady flow, or you've got lymph nodes around blocking that vein, the portal vein, what's going to happen is it's going to back it up mechanically, back up the flow, and the fluid will extravasate through the walls of the blood vessel into the abdomen, and that's ascites. It's extravasated serum from the blood. That's the main reason for it. Another reason for it would be if you had very low albumin. Another reason would be if you had a condition called carcinomatosis, where you have little, small little, like cottage cheese tumors all over the inside of the peritoneum. Right, so that way it's not coming from the portal vein, but it's coming from. So those are probably the three main ways of developing ascites. And so you got the drainage in. So what they've got to do is the ultimate thing is you've got to get rid of whatever's causing the blockages, and that's everything you're doing to get rid of, eliminate it. Right. So now I'm not, we don't just meditate and do qigong and eat right. We also do intravenous vitamin C and ozone, a lot of therapies to directly shrink. So while you're doing all that stuff that we talked about, and keep draining it, that's okay. Keep draining it for now. As soon as we remove the cause, whatever it is, whether it's carcinomatosis, low albumin, which you should know, and if your low albumin is in, you get IV albumin. Your doctor should get you. With the portal vein, whatever it is, you've got to stop that. But in the meanwhile, keep it out and get the fluid going in. Remember, so one of the ways that we prevent to diminish the accumulation of ascites is there's a drug called furosemide or Lasix. And then there's another diuretic called aldactone. The aldactone's potassium sparing. The Lasix gets rid of your potassium, which can be dangerous, so that you usually take it together. So like 20 to 40, depending on your kidney function, milligrams of Lasix a day, and then aldactone 25 milligrams 4 times a day. That way you don't have to worry about measuring the potassium and all that. And that just means that you're going to pee things out before they go to the abdomen to make it big, which means you've got to be getting either IV fluids or drinking a lot, because you don't want, otherwise you'll be peeing too much and you won't have enough blood volume in your blood vessels to nourish your body. So you got to keep the intravascular volume up by getting either IV fluids or drinking. And then those diuretics, so you can pee it out before it accumulates. Yeah. Any good clinic should know that. What's the problem? Can't find any good clinics nowadays. Yeah, you're right. All right, so shall we say, yay. Okay, everybody. Thank you, everyone, for coming,
Well, hi, Dr. Lodi and everyone. I'm Hammy. Allow me to jump in real quick to share some news before we leave. Thank you, Dr. Lodi, and thank you and attendees, everyone, including our members, Ron, Dana, Darlene, and Alice, to share some positive feedback with our membership groups. As Dr. Lodi said, power is to do nothing, but please make an exception on following our social medias. And you will find a variety of contents from Dr. Lodi, not only about an educationals, but includes other stuff like philosophy, some reactions from trending news or movie trailers, positively opinions, guidance, or point of view from Dr. Lodi. You can click on the link I have sent in the chat box just now. And due to tons of the message we have received per day from both email and social media, we will have Sunday Night Live every Sunday, of course, on 8 p.m. Eastern Time Zone. So you can place your questions in Dr. Lodi website on live sections, and we will brought some questions to answer on the live streams. And if there is no response due to tons of the question we have received, just keep sending. Okay. And in case you have faced any troubleshoot on joining the membership groups or anything, just send me the message to Pi or me or the email at hello@drlodi.com. Well, that's all for me.
Thank you.
And then Hammy, when is the vitamin C webinar because everyone, I'm going to do a long, exhaustive discussion of
Vitamin C webinars will be airing on 19, right, Pi?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, around 19, but we will make an announcement officially on every of the social media platform, including the membership as well on the time, the actual
right so
times.
on the 19th. So that's pretty soon. Anyway, it's because vitamin C. If I had only one thing to do, if there was only one thing I could do, it would be that. So I mean, in terms of that area, but I mean, besides cleaning up and all that, but yeah. So I really want everyone to understand vitamin C. So it's going to be a very exhaustive look into the science of it. All right, fantastic. I think we did it, everyone. So thank you for joining.
Thank you,
Aloha.
guys.
Namaste.
Namaste. Namaste.
Goodbye,
Namaskar.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Thank you.
Aloha. Good night, guys.
Good night.
Good night, and good day too.